We are now recording.
Okay, we're ready to go. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I call this regular city council meeting of December 16th to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Luna Liao,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Thorpe,
Here.
Mayor Green,
Here.
Councilmember Best, Councilmember Edwards,
Here.
we'll mark him present. Councilmember Thomas,
Here.
Councilmember Hill.
Okay. Would you all please join me for the article changes for silence? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just prior to approval of the agenda, I would like to request one small correction, and that is that item 9C be an action item and not a presentation discussion. So not to move it, just to sort of recategorize it.
That moves to be an amended agenda.
All in favor? All right. Let's move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. Does anyone know what it is? That's what I just asked. I don't see any members of the public in chambers. Is there any members of the public online who would like to comment on items not on the agenda? You're gonna pause again. All right, let's moving on. I kind of want to delay item number 6 until Best arrives. So let's jump ahead to the consent agenda. This is just the minutes of December 2nd.
Edwards moves to approve the consent agenda.
Alan seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
I thought you said you only were 2 minutes away.
Maybe not abbreviating, so.
It's probably us. What, Lori, what if we go ahead and do your city administrator report?
Okay,
Maybe I will just go out with my privilege to the end, is the way it goes.
okay. Great, just some updates on things that have been happening. So the pool task force, we had our first meeting on December 9th. And in attendance were me, Elaine Kent from PB Swims, Candace Bryans from the county, Lauren Barrett, who is our facilitator, and representing the school district was Kate Bartlett. So the point you all remember for this task force is to get all of us together with some consensus about what the path looks like towards achieving what the community is pretty clear that they would like to see, which is, it took us a little bit of time in our meeting to determine, but basically an indoor pool. So a public facility, outdoor wasn't the goal. Having it be privately owned is not the goal. Having it be small and not a facility that's can accommodate multiple uses for aquatics. So we talked about our mission, our vision, and the idea is essentially to get everyone as much as possible pulling in the same direction. So we've actually met for a while and made some good progress that really that all the entities want to be working together. So each entity is a partner. So the city holds the HACCP sales tax. The school district holds a facility, maybe not the facility, but holds a facility. And of course, county runs recreation, and PB Swims has a vested interest in having a pool. So having all those partners at the table to communicate with each other and work together is a huge accomplishment. On the subject of task forces, so, obviously tonight you're going to see some of the benefit of the bylaws task force and some of the progress that group has been making. As far as the parking task force, I did ask the mayor if Mr. Medina from Streets could attend those meetings just to be in the loop on some of the ideas and things that are being presented. And Mr. Medina indicated he is available and would like to attend those meetings. And so the other thing we were sort of talking about is that I am, of the members of the parking task force, we would like to invite them, the members, to tour the facility, the Streets facility. I know Councilmember Thomas has done that, but just to get an idea of what our equipment looks like, what, I think some of the ideas on plowing are very helpful, but knowing what the equipment looks like and maybe some of the capabilities of the equipment. So if you're talking about an idea that essentially we don't have the equipment for, or would be outside of the scope of our equipment, but I think just getting a tour would be, we invite you to do a tour. A couple other things I wanted to talk about: finishing up 2025 and moving forward towards 2026. So finishing up 2025, congratulations. Tonight is your last city council meeting. We will have the mayor is going to put together a retrospective for the city. We've asked all the departments, and if you remember, we've done this for a few years in a row about their accomplishments, but your accomplishments I wanted to point out is you had 39 city council meetings in 2025, and there are only 52 weeks in the year. The retrospective will have some more data about some of your accomplishments in council. But what I would like to point out is we've had meetings every Tuesday since June. And your council is going to go into January with a meeting every Tuesday in January. So the only ask that I would have is let's not have work sessions every Tuesday in February and March, because I think that will result in anarchy. So it's been a lot of work. A lot of accomplishments. Looking forward to the retrospective. I think the other thing is I want to talk about heading into 2026. So we will have a couple things I want to tee up for you. Your annual legal training will be on January 13th. Sam White will be there, as will our city attorney. Some other things to get the new council members onboarded and off in the right direction and helping their learning curve. We are going to do a strategic planning check-in and 2026 department goals on a work session on January 27th. So that's an opportunity to see where we are as far as accomplishing strategic objectives, checking in on, are these still? So it's good. Last time we checked in, we committed to the objectives again, but let's check in on those. And then also department goals are different than strategic planning in the sense that there may be a department goal, let's say, for planning to roll out online permitting. That's not necessarily a strategic objective, like a high level policy objective, but departments are going to have their own individual goals. So we wanted to talk about what those are for 2026. And then at the next, the second regular council meeting in January, I've asked the department heads to just talk about their scope of responsibilities in the departments, just as an onboarding for this new city council members, so that if someone says, well, I'm in charge of HR, there's a scope of idea of what that is. I'm in charge of onboarding. I'm in charge of working with supervisors with questions about their employees. I'm in charge of benefits. So new city council members and existing city council members will get an idea of the scopes of responsibilities. So that is sort of the phasing out 2025 and phasing into 2026, the first meeting of the year. We do have a number of housekeeping resolutions that we do every year. The one thing I'd like to do, we've never done, but I've always wanted to do, is we are going to do a resolution setting the meeting schedule for the city council. So there aren't any surprises, but this past year, we did move one of the meetings. So if there's any desire to move any of the meetings, I'd like folks to let me know before in time, bless you, in time to get that, because what I'd like to do is get that meeting scheduled to the paper so that our meetings are accurately published in the paper. Now, as we add work sessions, we'll have a process for doing that going forward, but just to resolution approving the regular meeting schedule for 2026. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is for the regional housing authority, you will need to do a couple of appointments for that. And so I'd like you to be thinking about that. And if I can yield a second of my time to Councilmember Luna Leal to kind of explain that, but I want folks to be prepared. We will have a resolution appointing members to the Regional Housing Authority due to our current members being council members that will not be returning in 2026. So,
Yeah, so, as you all know, Tim and I will be stepping off the council, in our official roles and, leaving 2 vacancies for the Regional Housing Authority. Council has the privilege to appoint 1 elected official, meaning the mayor and anyone on council, and anyone else they wish. I have already made a pitch for myself to be the alternate member, not alternate, but the other member that's not elected, but obviously I respect whatever new council's position is incoming. I also want to proceed. Hopefully, when we revive the IGA, we'll have this process refined to be a repeating thing every year. Specifically, obviously, it's important to make sure that you are happy with your current representation. So hopefully in the IGA, we can work something out where it's every single year, you all will have the opportunity to revise who that is. Instead of putting you in a hard situation where you would potentially have to have a hard conversation of kicking someone out. It could just be as simple as new year, maybe we want some new rep candidates, some hard feelings, and remove the personalities of it all. Opens a few more doors. So that's something that will hopefully work into the new IGA. But as it currently stands, it is appointment by council until council chooses otherwise. So whoever you all appoint will be on there until you all choose otherwise, or their roles change. For example, Tim and I are leaving council, our roles are changing. So hopefully the first meeting of January, you all will appoint 2 members to represent the city, as we will have a regular meeting on January for the Regional Housing Authority. And whoever those 2 may be, it would be important for them to be there at that first meeting.
And then that's what the meetings are again.
Yeah, they're the 3rd Wednesday, so let me see if I can.
Yeah, that's fine, all right. Just the 3rd Wednesday.
Yeah. So it'll be the 21st. Thank you.
Their evening meetings 5:30 to 7:30.
Usually at the Amex, which is the building right next to the current courts.
And pretty consistently, just once a month.
and then I always like to end things on a thankful gratitude note. Wonderful, wonderful holiday party last night. I think the best one we've had yet. So I wanted to thank Ms. Ortiz for all the work she put into that. I think we had a fantastic turnout, bigger turnout than I think we've ever had. We had mingling. I don't even know what happened. Several of the streets folks showed up, other than Mr. Medina. So that is a huge victory. I just wanted to thank everybody for the hard work that went into that. And if you weren't there and you didn't pick up your gift bag, there was a little gift bag there for all the employees and city council members. And it has the first logo item that I've ever approved for all employees. I think it turned out great. So just in time for the summer, you have your beanie. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Front streets.
Good evening. Gonna be a short report. It was pretty chaotic this last month for me. I was out with medical issues still dealing with. I had one gentleman in charge, Tyler Hemmings, and really like to publicly thank him for taking care of everything. I was checking with him later, but he maintained what we were doing and kept the guys. Some things that we needed that we had to put off without the snow, we actually worked on. And then when they did get snow, they were letting it go. We had a lot of winterizing to do for the equipment from summer that needed to be put away, and we also had to put all the equipment back together for the winter. So all the plows came back on, everything down, all the blades and everything got fixed, and even the wings on the grader got put back on to take them off during the summer. The guys stayed active doing that. They also maintained some of the patrol cars, and we've got more schedules come up with doing that. Really, we're just waiting for snow. The last first snowfall we had, the guys handled it pretty well. We are actually 2 people down, one because of my injury and one because I had another operator who's out on medical leave now for a while. I don't know for how long. I've got a prospect of possibly hiring a part-time, but we're still working on that. Right now, we seem to be ready to go, and as long as the weather's holding like this, we're actually doing okay. But I'm pretty confident that my guys can handle everything that comes up. If we do get a decent size snow, we should be okay with that. Don't really think I have anything else. Most everything I'm getting is from secondhand from our guy Tyler, but like I said, he's handling things like that.
Questions for Mr. McGee?
Question, after the snowstorm, the day or two after the snowstorm and after the plows were done, I saw a city employee out clearing the crosswalks, clearing the ADA ramps.
After you is, yeah,
Thank you.
that was, well, that's Orlando. That's his maintenance moving over from doing maintenance. Now he's gonna be going into streets with us. He doesn't have a CDL or anything, but we're just trying to get him trained on the clouds and other stuff and doing like that. So on days that we're not actually moving snow or plowing snow, I have him doing some of his old duties as far as sidewalks and public city properties. And one of the things he likes to do is he likes to clear those sidewalks because I tried to talk to the county guys, but they like to plow with their little snow four-wheeler
Right.
and block the intersections.
There's somebody who goes around, and I don't know if they work for the county. I know they don't work for the city, but there's somebody who goes around with the snow blower when it's really deep and they'll clear at least the main crosswalk. Does the city own a snow blower? A smaller one that could be used just for the main crosswalks? Sometimes it's so heavy you literally can't.
Yeah,
You can't shut it.
we could incorporate that in there. We did hire another person to take over the cleaning and stuff of the buildings and
Right.
take over the bathroom and stuff. That's why we're able to move over to us. I can incorporate him into that. Right now, I just have him doing plowing, just the small plows.
Yeah.
And then when he's done with that, then I have him go do Science Park, City Hall, all the other properties, and I can tell him if he's got extra time, take this over.
The snow blower can get through some of those areas. It might be a little easier for him, but anyway, he was very visible and thank you for that.
I'll let him know.
And we appreciate that. I think we've struggled with some of the adjacent property owners. It is the adjacent property owner's responsibility, but we have struggled with them. So sometimes it's just, we end up having to do it.
We've got a lot of private contractors in town, and I've been contacting them individually and talking to them about the locations of putting their piles and telling them to incorporate in some of ours. So it makes it easier for all of us. Yes, we're picking up some of their stuff, but they're also helping us, like not making little piles here and there. Sure, we don't have to clean as much of that.
Yeah.
So that's been working out, but there's so many, I'm guilty just like anybody else. I have my own snow plow in my truck and stuff, but I know where to put everything for years. 30 years now. I've been putting my snow in certain areas and they're all good. I'm just trying to get in touch with people that I can find doing this. 60 has become a problem in the 100 block. Because a lot of their plows and they think they're helping at clearing parking slots, and then they have to get to the back with another vehicle. Yeah, I get the call because my guys did this. Believe me, if my guys did this with the equipment we have, we would have found it. So, you know, so we have to deal with issues like that and just trying to contact people as I can.
Yeah, no, when the big floods come through after a big snow on Harrison Avenue, those berms get so heavy that the business owners can clear the sidewalks, but the public thoroughfares like the crosswalks
Yeah.
are so heavy you literally can't get through it with a snow shovel.
Yes.
So that's where people like Orlando and your snow blower would really be a big jump. So
Well, usually after the first snowfall, when they have to do that, as long as they don't get a second heavy snowfall that next night, they usually try and get out there. Our policy is, the first night we plow the roads, we get everything clear. The second night we come out,
it's clean.
clean Harrison Avenue, and 100 blocks. all
And that happened this time,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, so
So they'll get to them within a day or two, but yeah, I understand.
it's just nice to be able to, people see it, people comment on it. It's nice to be able to answer the question. Yeah, that's a city person. Thank you.
The clearing of the storage, seems really strict to me this time as well.
Yes, because they were held up for us. So you guys could actually get on it right away.
Yeah,
That's something, because a lot of times, when we get that much snow, we having to go back and finish the outer edges of the blocks and stuff. And this time they could actually get everything cleared up and, in their piles right away. Then they started on the second one right away. In fact, that first night they cleared Harrison Avenue quickly enough that they actually got started that first night or second night to get some of those snow, storage areas cleared out.
Well, it really makes a huge difference because with the warm day flex, it just becomes on this sheet.
Yeah, and that's why they worked so diligently the next several days to get all the piles that they could from the 100 blocks. Last week they were actually working on 200 and 300 blocks. And right now, most of the farther out ones, they're smaller piles because by the time they get to the bottom to the ends, they're a little bit small. Those are melting off pretty piece of fire. You know, so things are looking actually good.
Schedule all storage.
If they know, so every 2 weeks, then we.
This isn't necessarily the streets department issue. But there is a street light that is out. It's on the corner of. Eleven comparison. That was by Ice Thomas. It's kind of a critical street light because that's a big steep hill. It gets super icy. And is totally dark and it gets a lot of foot traffic, so.
If you would get me like order information and stuff, we have a contact that Excel can report information.
Yeah, it's one of the smaller ones. Yeah, it's Excel and nobody else.
Yeah, I didn't know one else to bring it up.
Thank you very much. Leave it. All right. Police department.
Mayor, council, I was asked to bring shooting information to the meeting tonight. We actually get a lot of shots fired calls, but when I looked at how many we've gotten so far this year, probably about 30. But it's a lot of fireworks, maybe hunters outside the city limits hunting. But what I have is statistics where there are victims. So in 2024, there were 2 shooting incidents where we had one was out in the county. It was a road rage incident involving a deputy as a victim, and the suspect shot at the deputy. And then we had a domestic homicide in the city, and those were the only 2 in 2024. So far this year, we've had 4. 3 of them were in the county. One was a domestic homicide in one of the trailer parks. The other was an attempted homicide in Mountain View West involving the high school students. And then, of course, there was a road rage incident, Stringtown. And in the city, we had a shooting at the Ice Palace Park where nobody was shot. But in every single one of these, arrests have been made. So it has been an uptick, sadly. But there's a lot of conversations going on as to how we can mitigate these incidents. And all the major players are involved, so I'm optimistic we can make some progress.
The fines levied and fines collected are going up substantially. Is that a concerted effort on your part?
Personnel, hopefully we'll have a full staff next year, and we're hiring younger officers. Younger officers tend to write more tickets, so I won't say, no, it's not me, it's just the evolution of things.
Well, that's nice to see. Between that and the CSO seem like they've been much more active as well, so thank you.
When the CSOs, they have been under me, but I'm gonna put them under Sergeant Erie now. Actually, that began a couple weeks ago.
And are we back up to 2 CSOs?
We have 2 CSOs and one of them is responsible for animal control.
It's nice to see that trend. Thank you.
Yeah, I got to second that. Awesome job on the parking tickets.
They're easy to write. Thank you.
Say thanks for compiling that, report to on the fund balance. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, that's Cisco.
Fire department. City chief.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's me. Chief is, under the weather. He was hoping to be here, but, he sent just a little update, for you. 2 firefighters on B shift and C shift are responding out of Station 2 with great success. Chief will start capturing statistics on this. Climax donated some old bunker gear and the fire department will be using that for training. The Spartan engine is in Boise for repairs. This should be covered under our warranty. 5 members of the fire department passed their Colorado State driver operator practical. And Chief Boyle and his efforts helped the Tree of Sharing pass out 350 gift cards and raised over $14,000. Those are the points that he had in addition to his report, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take any questions back for the chief.
It's really nice, honoring the deputy last night.
Yeah, I think the fire department is definitely very good at acknowledging the efforts of their team. And so if y'all don't know, one of our firefighters, Justin Jacoby, is leaving. He's joining the military. And so we're going to miss him. He is a excellent firefighter. And as the chief mentioned last night, was progressing up through his training books. And so we'll miss him, but he's off to serve our country. So yeah, they did a nice tribute last night.
Human resources.
I want to start with last night was awesome. You were there, you did a great job. It was super fun. I haven't been to that fun of a holiday review here. So it was great. So right now our open vacancies are part-time and full-time shelter tech positions. We also have a police officer position. And then our ongoing projects, I have a tentative date for the Handbook Gunning Cover 2 and looking at March 9th. That is like my personal date to look at that. Tentative just to see where in the end of that quarter it might fall. So. I am looking forward to using Tyler Technologies, getting to know all that system, just because we've had some issues with the current system that I'm almost like good grief. So, but I'm still making it work. For trainings, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I got 10 city employees to sign up for the ice driving out on the lake in Georgetown. So I'm really excited for that. We're gonna change it every year. So anyone from City of Leadville that's an employee can do that. So I'm excited to see how that is firsthand. But we have different departments that are gonna attend, so that's really exciting. Been doing employee reviews, we have 2 departments left. And so I'm super excited about that. Completed projects, we set up a PTO shared employee program. So that's where employees can donate PTO time for employees that need PTO time that don't have enough in their PTO. So we need to pay donations and applications for that. Open enrollment was successful. Everyone that needed benefits was able to get me their new forms or completed forms of state benefits. And then I have been working on employee files and making sure everything matches with what I've been asked and received, making sure it looks good in Excel for finance to be able to get everything rolling out for 2026. So we have about 67 employees for city level, that's full-time, part-time. That does not include reserves and employees like that. I'm currently working on an onboarding and offboarding checklist. I have got a whole list of that so I can start doing my standard operating procedures in HR because I will be here 1 whole year on December 30th. I'm the longest HR to fill this position. So pretty excited on that. And I will share my 2026 goals in the retrospective.
Oh, and one other thing, you have one other accomplishment. We now have a custodian for,
Oh, yes. We
City
finally have
Hall.
a custodian. Yes, I know Tony mentioned it briefly, but yes, we finally have a custodian. I've been working on getting that filled since springtime. So having that now in the winter is super exciting. Any questions for others? Yes.
How did healthcare premiums change this year? And I'm curious about how that affects the employee and the city.
Yeah, so they went up. I don't have the percentage they went up. But we were able to have the city absorb the difference, so that didn't affect our employees. They went up a little bit to where even with our annual increase, oh gosh, COLA and increase, merit increase wouldn't really make a difference at that point. But some of our premiums on other things went down, so it kind of evens out, which is great.
I was really glad to meet the new docent coordinator.
Oh, yes, we got that as well.
Hopefully we can get our museums open more consistently this
Yes,
summer.
no, it's in my retrospective, but I believe I onboarded 21 new employees this year. So
Out of 67.
out of 67, yes, but maybe give or take there, but yeah. 21 new, and that includes Wildland and all that, so.
Almost a third, that's great.
Yeah, so it was definitely fun learning, but I'm ready to get my training even more next year, so. Go, 26.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, have a great evening, and happy holidays if I don't see you before.
Yeah, we shelter.
Here, I made a new visual for the chart, so if you don't mind taking my chart. For the month of November, as a quick reflection, we had 13 intakes, 11 outcomes. As of today, we've had 278 animals come to the shelter. We had a kitten surrender and a stray dog brought in before we were closing. So from January 1st to the end of November, we had 261 animals. The visual for those animals is below. So you can see total wise, 73 of the animals came from the city and 166 came from the county. Again, if we had adoption returns that were adopted to people who lived out of town and they came back, They are counted as a returned animal, but not for the city or the county, since they live out of area. So the next graphic, that orange slice is what represents those either adoption returns, or if animals are surrendered to Summit County or brought to Summit County or Ark Valley, and they request that we pick them up since they came from Lake County. So the next graph there, those are both for 2025, to date from January 1st to December 10th, when I worked on the report. We did have over 160 email requests. I think it was 164, and I know I was missing one or two, to transfer animals in. The only ones we agreed to were a dog that was surrendered to Summit County, one or two that were taken or surrendered to Ark Valley, and then when Ark Valley had the fire, July or August, we helped them and transferred some animals in. All right, on the next page, it's another visual, so you can see city, county, and out of area animals based on the month. So the Ark Valley fire was in July, and that's why that out of area bar is higher. Our current challenges and events, we are onboarding our 2 new staff members. We have 2 other positions open. The staff attended the Parade of Lights. They had a good time. We just received word that we were awarded an $8,000 grant from the Animal Assistance Foundation, and that will go directly towards spay and neuter. And we have our fundraising efforts for the mural and the tent project. We have a local artist who's going to donate her time for the mural. So currently, community members can pick a square, and they range from a 4x4 all the way to 7x7, and the price varies. They can use stencils, or they can freehand what they want to design. What we found is people are more interested in the shelter staff making it for them, which then is using staff time. So we have a volunteer who's also a local artist, and she's going to come in and do some kind of pre-drawn tiles, as well as save a few tiles if people want to give her their pet portraits and she can draw it. They can come in and paint it, or she can paint it for them. That will help us. And I'm still working to get some animal control statistics. I have some more reporting to do to the Animal Shelter Advisory Board, but hopefully we can get that synced up. So either having the SO and the PD animal control officers trained on the software that we use. So if they do a return to owner in the field, it still counts for shelter statistics, because that's going to help us get those grants. It's great if they can do those return to owner in the field, but then we don't get the statistics or the points overall when we're applying for funding. And then we're still working on the strategic plan objectives. The last 2 are the sponsorship of adoption fees, and also discussing purchasing locally whenever possible. And then the next one is grants and housing support assistance. So that's ongoing until 2027.
Questions for Animal Shelter?
Yeah, I think you guys, the Animal Shelter Advisory Board, had a meeting with Planning Tech, but any update on, was there any progress made on that meeting?
I was not present. I was out for court on family leave, so I'm happy to tell that.
Yeah, I thought it was a really productive meeting. There were obviously some misunderstandings on both sides, and so having all parties at the table just to explain, like, what is our process? What is their mission? What is, like, how they liked the animal shelter staff to reach out to them and for what circumstances. So it was really productive, I thought.
Thank you.
Few questions. Do we know a final answer on what the county is budgeted to contribute?
Yes, Lori and I double checked today.
The county's budget number for the animal shelter was $189,557.50. And we're still, calculating what that means in terms of a cut for the animal shelter. But I think we're going to be able to, with the grant, that we fortuitously, Caitlin, or Ms. Cusco just got. I think that helps some. I think we have some other strategies for how to manage that, that cut. The fire department's budget, they ended up needing to cut $140,000. And so they're eliminating the engineer position that they were going to put in the Southern Fire Station. And there were other cuts in addition to that to get to the $140,000.
So, what did the city budget for the animal shelter?
You want me to- Well, so the difference, this is where I got myself into trouble. You can't just take the bottom line and divide it by 2. There's a county contribution. So Ms. Hewlett explained to me, we don't split the full expenditure amounts since it's offset by fees for services, donations, etc. So what you need to look at, you need to look at the line item 09-300-3321, which is the contribution from the county. So we would take that, and I can, if you want, I can do that right now and compare it to what they're funding. But
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious, like when we had our joint work session, what was the proposal then and what is the change? Like what is the amount of change?
Yeah, can you calculate that real quick? I think that was the question.
Well, yeah, what's that? Oh, so it was like, what you planned around $200,000?
Yes. Yes.
Trying to pull up Crystal's.
May I ask a question along those lines?
Well, can we, I was gonna say, can we, if she's gonna do the calculation real quick. Do you have that line item?
I don't have the line item, but I have the email from Crystal. $202,057.50.
It's not too terribly off from what we had budgeted.
I have some bulk purchase.
I thought I had a number average at like 240. Am I completely off base?
Well, that's what I'm saying is the bottom line budget isn't going to, you have to, if you won't go to the bottom line, the full, adopted full budget for the animal shelters, 384,836. But again, that's offset by revenues. So that's why you have to go to the particular line item. That's the contribution from the county and cross. And so if Ms. Cusco's already done that and it's $12,000 and we got an $8,000 grant, we'll, with trying to order in bulk and trim some other places, I think we'll be okay.
I have 2 other questions. So I'm curious, you said 160 requests for transferring animals into the facility in 2025.
Yes,
Are those from out of area requests?
those are all in the state, but out of area, yes.
Okay, so those aren't like Lake County or Leadville residents or.
Correct, those are other, like holding facilities requesting
Yeah.
shelters, pull dogs from them.
How does that compare to years past? Just.
I didn't track those statistics, but this year I kept them in a separate folder and then I did like a select all.
Did it seem like it was like more than usual or?
I think it's probably a little more than usual, less than historically because previous state laws, we could transfer from out of area and out of state. Current state laws, with PACA, you can't transfer from out of state and also have a spay neuter exemption. So since we occasionally need the spay neuter exemption, we have not transferred out of state for a few years. And we've been so full, we haven't been able to transfer in.
And I'm also curious, what happened in May?
Kissing season probably.
That should be like, quite a spike in county intakes. And,
It's most likely kitten season influenza.
okay, so people like 5 letters Or
Mhm.
kittens and-
Yeah, this year, we currently still have 8 kittens. We just have 4 kittens surrendered, a litter of 3 kittens down 2 weeks ago, and then a single kitten brought in today. So it's not cold enough and we're still eating kittens.
Okay, thanks.
Glad to bring it to you.
All right.
One more question there.
Sure, please.
You had 163 requests to transfer in, but you only transferred in 3, if I remember right.
Yeah, 3 or 4, because we had to pick up
Right.
our aggregate animals.
Very good. The second and side question to that is, will we have an amended budget since we have the 2 different budget numbers for animal shelter and the fire department? Or? So our number will end up being different than what the county's number is for the year.
The budget is what the budget is. It's just a tool. The bottom line will end up being different and will go into expenditures with that in mind.
Okay, but no supplemental budget will be required.
We always do a supplemental budget. And Ms. Yule will present you the supplemental coming up probably, and I think she usually does it the first quarter. But that's what you ended up doing. So we always do a supplemental budget to reflect that. But the budget is how much you are planning. And so now we know that the numbers came in from the county lower. And so, the fire department will not plan to have the engineer at the Southern Fire Station. And the other cuts that they had to make, they will be planning for those. So when in essence, what will happen when you look at our budget is that unless the county reevaluates, which they said they might do, say halfway through the year, and, offer additional funding, we're going to come way under budget. So the end result, we will be under budget.
Effectively, we're going by below the budget. Right? Okay.
Yeah, because they basically said they're not going to give us that money. So, unless there's other, so I say, for the animal shelter, the revenue generation prospects are, so for the fire department, their revenue generation generally is the wildland deployment. That bucket of money is limited to certain things.
Sure.
So, but if the animal shelter's successful in the model that we're trying to put together in 2026 is more fundraising, they may say, great, come the end of the year, we actually didn't have to cut because we were very successful at fundraising.
Thank you for the explanation.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Deputy City Clerk.
Hey, good evening, council. So I started about 7 weeks ago and I've been able to fully transition into the role in the meantime. I've received trainings as of recently on multiple of our softwares, and I'm just feeling pretty good about things. In regards to business licensing updates, we're currently processing quite a few renewals. It is renewal season and those need to happen before the 31st, or else they will be paying late fees. So we've seen some new businesses come in, such as a cleaning company, multiple contractors, a new retail store, and a food truck. But outside of new applications, the focus is processing renewals and also encouraging remaining businesses to submit their renewals in a timely manner. For liquor licensing, this month we process renewals for the Delaware, for the Mineral, Delaware and Mineral 1886, the Silver Dollar, as well as the Eagles Lodge. We've approved a few special event permits and are also working to improve communication so that the community and local businesses better understand the process of special event permits. We've had a little bit of confusion there from just local entities. Regarding short-term licensing, we are following up on several STR licenses with unpaid accommodations taxes. So those collection efforts are underway before year end. We've added about 7 short-term rentals, prospective ones, to the waitlist this month. And we will also be reevaluating some of our software and compliance just to be more user-friendly and hopefully save staff time in the future. So we'll be looking at some possible softwares for that. Regarding marijuana licensing, we locally are processing the Floyd's local license renewal, but we do need to change our local licensing process for marijuana licensing to better match the state process. The state has dispensaries renew every 2 years, and currently we have them renew every 1. So that's something we'll be looking at moving forward with marijuana licensing. Lastly, like I said, I've been fully transitioning into the role, refining internal processes, supporting businesses and residences, trying to keep compliance up to date. And I've also identified some overlapping software subscriptions. So I've created a tracking document and also hopefully plan to meet with the department heads in January to evaluate our software needs and look at those costs and see what kind of money we can save. Lastly, I'll also be using some extra budget from our education and training for the city clerk's department to sign up for some training before the year end. So that is everything that I have, and thank you for listening.
Sounds scarily competent.
I know.
Good job. That's fantastic.
One question, you mentioned in your written report, some STR compliance issues with that software. Is that something that's just kind of like a gap, that's a one-time thing, or do you think that's going to be an ongoing issue?
So, sorry, can you clarify a little bit more than that?
Your
yes.
federal short-term rental licenses have been unpaid accommodations tax being followed up with collection efforts underway for the end of the year, and right above that you mentioned kind of the alerts didn't reach them.
Yes, so we're not sure if that was a problem that occurred because of the way that we set up the software with MuniRev. So that's one of the reasons that we are looking at new softwares as well, just because we did have some issues. It could have been on our end in the setup, but it also could have been just that, you know, the subscription we paid for was not necessarily giving us the service provided. So yeah, we did have some complaints about just not getting email as well as not being able to go in and pay their taxes because those workflows just weren't popping up on the website. So that was definitely a frustration for a lot of our short-term rental people. But I have been able to go through and do much of that manually. I can't say that I found everyone. I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to switch up and share my screen tonight. Just show page 18 of your packet, which is an outlook for 2026. And I'm going to, now that you can kind of see the full page, I'm going to zoom in to the very top part so you can actually read this on the screen. But this is just a list of a lot of the legislative items that I'll be working on with the city attorney's office. I think this is helpful for us for multiple reasons. One, it lets us, within my department, it lets us know, let you know kind of what our priorities are. I'll narrate this a bit. It also lets the city attorney's office know kind of the workload for next year. And citywide, it helps us figure out how we want to prioritize some of these items within my department with other legislative matters we'll be working on. But I think realistically, we're going to focus on the top 10. Even if we were pretty aggressive next year, I think the top 10 would be as much as we can do. So that kind of gets us right down everything from the comp plan down to exterior lighting or dark sky. Does anybody have any immediate questions on this, or I'd like to narrate this a bit further?
In line 2, what does SIA stand for, please?
Okay, good. That is subdivision improvement.
Thank you.
Specifically incentive zoning 3+ units.
Yes.
Is that specifically just looking at creating more incentive-based zoning for smaller infill developments?
Yes, yes. So I'll go through and narrate these. I think number one, you're all familiar with the comp plan we're looking at approximately March of next year. That will come in front of you, I think, via resolution, or at least through the Planning and Zoning Commission via resolution. Everything else is an ordinance. Most of these are, almost all of these are ordinances that have to go through Planning and Zoning Commission for public hearing first. So the first 3 starting here, where it says Title 17 zoning, those are state mandated.
So this is some housekeeping that we need to do. The first is regarding residential occupancy, the definition of family. The second is regarding irrigated turf. And the third is regarding wildfire resiliency. We have an April deadline for adoption of wildfire resiliency, so we have to do a lot of work on that in the next few months. So those are state mandated. Adoption of either the building codes, that is something that's going to kind of follow in the heels of wildfire resiliency, because we'll be using the Lake County Building Department's Board of Review. And then the next three are your strategic plan objectives. So those are HPC decisions. If we can reduce that down to one public hearing for those. Annexation agreements, so that will be talking about if someone, the developer, wants to bring their property within city limits, what kind of public benefits we will receive out of that. The rest of it would just be following state statutes. And the last strategic plan objective is incentive zoning. So this is really one of the last tools for affordable housing that we can incorporate within our zoning code, as we've done in several others now. So that might be, for example, if someone has a smaller lot, they want to do 4 units, but the code allows 2, they could voluntarily deed restrict one of those 4 units in order to get a density bonus. So again, we're approaching the deed restricted housing from multiple ways. Psilocybin is something that we need to address as a land use within our code. We're going to do a work session with the Planning and Zoning Commission on that in January. And then I think it is a high priority in the community. We're hearing a lot of this in the comprehensive plan, that we adopt a exterior lighting ordinance, also known as dark sky. So I can go into detail on any of these and all of these. City attorney has done a good amount of work on some of these already in this top 10 list. So we'll have some efficiencies as we get into the first half of 2026 and making progress on these. I'm going to try to bring these to you as much as possible in addition to the Planning and Zoning Commission in presentation discussion format during your regular meetings, at least for the first half of the year. So we're not meeting on off weeks.
The final one on exterior lighting regulations, it's not just MJ and SOB, because in my other job that marijuana and shortness of breath.
Yeah. We got half of that, right? Marijuana and sexually oriented businesses.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
All right, I'd like to just continue with just the remainder of my department update. Any final questions on legislative items for 2026? All right, I will stop sharing.
I'm busy.
Is this why you just bitterly chuckled when I said after the last big push for the reordinances? I was like, oh, you just must be so relaxed now, like you're basically like.
Well, I feel like you guys are really warmed up for passing ordinances. Just keep going. So for your update for your commissions, they have not met. They're not meeting this month just to focus on the comprehensive plan work and some meetings you've also attended. We have a code enforcement item on south end of town, 501 South Highway 24. This is an illegal infill operation that's been going on for a while, but there's been some recent activities. You can think of this as just two properties west of Big R, not the brand new construction, but there's a towing operation there. Property being cooperative involves the Superfund site, involves floodplain. We have had 3 meetings with EPA and CDPHE, correction, 2 meetings. We have 1 scheduled in January. The update really is that we are waiting for the attorneys for EPA and CDPHE to give us advice. It's a big deal. It's a lot of fill that's going into a highly regulated riparian corridor. In terms of pre-application, we had a pre-application meeting yesterday with the design team for 506 Harrison Avenue. That's otherwise known as the D-Hive. That will be coming, we are expecting an application in January to be coming before you for public hearing. So if you hear rumblings of that, if someone approaches you about that, please know that that will be forthcoming application, which will be subject to ex parte contact limitations. In terms of, in terms of our survey project, we had a kickoff meeting today for the grant funded survey project. We're surveying over 400 historic structures. within our historic district. So that is, west, Chestnut Street, Elm Street, and Second Street, and west 10th Street, 11th Street, and 12th Street. That will wrap up in 2027. So we're starting today. And so I will just be giving you updates here throughout 2026 on that project. In terms of the comprehensive plan, that was my second to last item. Last month, we had 7 community engagement meetings. I think many of you participated in those. We've had great attendance. We'll have one on Thursday, specifically regarding historic preservation, about 20 people, stakeholders related to historic preservation. We ran some numbers, interesting note on permitting within our historic district. The certificate of appropriateness permit that's required for doing work within the historic district. We processed 100 certificates of appropriateness in the past 3 years. And there's a 96% approval rate with 0 denials. The ones that did not get approved were either withdrawn or pending code enforcement items. And then last update I have is from your building department, Lake County. Andy Schneider, the director, will be giving a annual report in your packet in January. But I'm happy to announce that this is something we've been monitoring for a while. The BOCC approved an in-house position within their budget for a plans examiner / inspector in-house position. Right now they're contracted. And the goal is for the person that they hire to have ICC certs. That's the international body that sets the codes. And ultimately, hopefully to be a rise to a chief building official position. So that's, we've been monitoring that for a while. That's great news, and the building department's been working on that for a while. That's my report. I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Just to clarify, that's moving away from Shane's Coda, and we'll have an in-house inspector.
I think at this time, it is certainly additional. I don't know that it is a replacement.
Fantastic.
Very much.
Yeah.
So for our last department reports, we have all of the finance department things, and Ms. Hewlett is on a very well deserved break. So Ms. Simonson is going to deliver part of this, and many thanks to Stephanie Fry, who joins us online to field questions, particularly about any bills you have questions on. Go ahead.
Great. Well, I assume that you've all read the memo. I don't have anything additional to add regarding the finance department, other than we are very grateful that the budget process is completed. And I just wanted to thank Ms. Hewlett for making the process go a lot smoother. You know, I think a number of things that have happened, you'll see in 2025, you kind of see on her report every time. Colorado Trust obviously is a great investment for us. The feds did reduce rates on December 10th, so that does affect us some in the income. We did project for 2026 that the feds would be reducing rates, so that is taken into consideration in our budget going forward. If the feds reduce rates a lot, you know, that could change. But those balances are fantastic. You know, sales tax, we're still running over projected revenues every single month. Even if we stay flat for the next month, we will probably finish the year about $500,000 over what we had in 2024. So that is money that goes back into the general fund because all the departments are running on track for their budgets. And we projected revenues to be flat. So expenditures were flat. So that money is great to go back into the general fund. You can see property tax, accommodations tax, not really a ton of new items on that. The big thing is that once Ms. Hewlett finishes budget, we turn around and there's processing of W-2s for every employee for the end of the year. Just so you know that process has, we do that through Cassell now, and it is not by hand. We are not mailing out envelopes. So just another, you know, kudos to Ms. Hewlett's department in doing that. So it doesn't ever stop. So they go into W-2s and she's already preparing for audit. We really, really, really would like to get the audit done on time instead of asking for extension. Just gonna say, you all serve on the Laura board. We have not received the audit from the Laura. So that is a problem. I would encourage you to strongly think about that as Laura board members going forward. That is the sole reason the city didn't file our audit, and had to ask for an extension. So, Ms. Hewlett sent an email out yesterday and we still haven't received the Laura audit. So please think about that. And so the other issue too, a couple things were, I just signed the contract for Tyler Technologies. So we will be starting that process. We will look at, first of all, putting the general ledger module in first. So that's the finance department and HR. And once those modules are up and going, we will work on adding the other modules for municipal court and the city clerk's office, which it will be a lot better, but it's not going to be without hiccups. I'm going to tell you that every software system is a bit of a learning curve. This is huge. So once this is in place, it will touch practically every department because every department in some fashion probably is going to take money. So Tyler will be our system going forward for that. And then other thing is just to shout out to Ms. McBride, who's been working on a ClearGov project. So you can see in the last bullet point in the staff report, she has been working on using ClearGov to track and input our strategic planning. So you've seen that the budget book is in ClearGov. It makes things a lot easier to read. It's a lot easier to navigate than an Excel spreadsheet. So we're going to be transitioning to that as far as strategic planning tracking. And we're kind of hoping for that to be in place when you have your next strategic planning check-in meeting. So with that, I would just see, Ms. McBride, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Just with the strategic plan document, and that will be at, I believe, the January 27th meeting. And so you should be able to see that document. And that's, I don't really have much else to add. We're just working on the year end. You touched on that with W-2s. So our office is going to be quite busy with that in the next few weeks, along with our other regular duties, but not much else to add.
Thank you. With that, we're happy to try and field any questions that involve Disneyland. Wait, no, from the finance department.
Nice hat.
I really like this hat, so I'm sporting it.
The Tyler implementation should take about 12 months.
Well, yeah, and I think, yes, and it also depends on how many modules we decide and how long each of those take, but yes. Mhm. Because there's other capabilities that we may use at a later point. Mhm, right.
Question. I remember being able to easily find the budget info on the website and see the ClearGov stuff. I don't see it right now. Is it?
Oh, the budget book?
Yeah.
We're still finalizing it. So there are a couple of things that Ms. Hewlett is adding. We are adding department descriptions. So yes, you will be able to see that. It's just not quite finished yet, but it'll be like it was in prior years.
I just wanted to highlight the accommodation stacks, even with the enforcement pickups. And some probably late payments coming in. Looks like we're doing really well, so I just wanted to highlight that as good news, as well as, of course, our stats, which.
All right. Any questions? Shall we move on to bills?
No bills.
Questions on the bills?
Can't believe no one made that joke previously. That's quite good. Yeah, yeah.
If there are no questions, everybody needs to pay bills.
That sentence.
All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? Okay, done with department reports.
And any of the departments that are still here, you do not have to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you. Thank you all.
So next, is just a review of the bylaws task force product to date. The bylaws task force, which was Councilmember Joey Edwards, Christian Liliao, Pro Tem Cisco Hart, and myself. It's a really productive group, and everybody just worked really hard on these. We looked over a lot of different models from other towns, other municipalities. And each kind of threw in things that we would like to see on our rules of order. And so what you see before you in the packet is the draft as it stands right now. Some of the things that I left in red are either questions I have for our legal or questions that I would just like council to weigh in on if they want to change something or if they're okay with it as it is. I also included our old current bylaws just to show you how far that these few meetings have brought us.
So how do you want to consolidate this feedback? Is that what we're doing right now, or?
I'd like to hear what people think. You know, really what I'm looking for tonight is if there are particular definite changes or different directions that you would like us to take, then I can incorporate those from the bylaws and or into the bylaws.
Makes it really helpful to do.
From a city attorney's perspective, not to interrupt you guys, sorry, but I'm just going to take notes from you guys tonight. And then if you have some legal questions you want to ask me, I looked over it. I can generally field them, but basically I'll take whatever you guys have tonight and then additional feedback. And then our office will like actually process it and put it into kind of more of a cohesive and answer those legal questions then. So I can give you some quick takes now, but I'm looking more for just stuff from you guys that I will incorporate for next time.
Thank you then.
So I guess I was gonna say, for the council members who weren't involved, maybe what would be helpful is if you had an immediate like takeaways. So let those be known, otherwise I think we can capture some of the big highlights and see your guys' opinion. Okay, it doesn't seem like y'all have any immediate takeaways. I think some big ones highlighted in red, packets being delivered on Thursday. That was a big one that we got discussion over. So just give us the flexibility to be able to check that ahead of time and have like a weekend to really process through that. That seems good with everyone.
Is that practical for city staff that are putting together the agendas?
So it's gonna move up the time schedule for, by basically a day. So we'll just move up the deadline. I think that the one thing we had, it can't be a shall, it should be, you know, generally. We sometimes have partners who just don't get us materials or there's some issue, technological issue. But, you know, I've been places where the packets come out on, you know, generally the goal is to get packets out on Thursday. So I will let I'm not to put you on the spot, but I think for us from a practical standpoint, it just means moving the deadline up a day.
I think it's critical end.
Yeah, sure.
Just one regarding planning and zoning commission. We have public hearings at planning and zoning commission on Wednesday nights. And then the next day we generate the CCF the next morning. So at a minimum, we do need Thursday morning to prepare that in the packet for public hearings that are coming to you the following week.
Thursday by 6 p.m. would certainly be acceptable. And I think we had originally talked about if somebody couldn't get, you know, an outside party couldn't get information, then they were bumped. That was kind of the rule, or at least that was what was discussed.
I think that, you know, the danger of what Mr. Johnson is speaking of is if there is a public hearing, we have that. Who's waiting on a determination, and I think it's sort of incumbent upon us to be on top of that as possible and not make and go ahead and introduce, overlay.
Well, and you can't now. You just passed a 90-day expedited permitting for some affordable housing. So I think the issue is that as much as, you know, we try and meet those deadlines, there are sometimes when we can't bump someone. So if it's you know, like if we're trying to do an ordinance that we're required to have effective by a certain date, things like that, there are sometimes we can't bump it. So I guess from a planning perspective, is that?
I think from a planning perspective, we're gonna try to do a lot in 2026, and, you know, as you can see, set the stage. So I think probably more often than not, well, let me rephrase that. I would say that probably less than 50% of the time, it's not going to be an issue, but probably at least 25% of the time it will be an issue. To have if we were to have a deadline on Wednesday.
And I think,
December
Thursday afternoon at 6.
So, but we have to submit, there's an internal process.
So for packet deadlines, the materials need to be to our deputy city clerk the day before.
Okay.
And that's just not, it was not realistic it is just not realistic, because then everybody asks, you know, for an extension, and then what happens is our deputy city clerk is inundated with packet items, and sometimes the day is not enough to put the packet together. So our internal deadlines would need to be moved up, which then crunches your timeframe. So you would, and the other issue is by 6 p.m. is great, but I'm not going to require employees to work after 5 p.m. So our goal would be to not have our employees.
I think the intention behind this was, it felt like a lot of times we were getting a lot of information day of or day before, and that's the hardest part for us to prepare. And it's not that it would necessarily have to forcefully bump anything if we didn't get it. It just gives us the opportunity to, I think that part of our discussion was to give us the opportunity to say, we're going to have this discussion at a future date because we didn't have enough information at an appropriate time. So in these cases, like edge cases where, you know, maybe it has to be sent out Friday afternoon, the additional packet information, I think, you know, obviously I can't speak for the incoming council, but that seems reasonable to me. And that's not what we're trying to target. The discussions we had was really to give us the most amount of time to review everything in the packet and the most broad information, which realistically could get done by Thursday, like department reports, or sometimes there are some partner things that we would want to see ahead of time, presentations, sometimes there's resolutions or there shouldn't be a conflict. So it was really just to try to get us as much time as possible to realistically be able to review it and hopefully avoid having these hiccups where sometimes council members may not have an opportunity to fully review the packet just because it's not reasonable within the time frame. So I mean, it doesn't sound like it would necessarily be an inherent conflict. I think there's definitely ways to that, but maybe we need to have the language be a little bit more a suggestion rather than a forceful, or at least, you know, attempted to be Thursday report, or maybe we have some other process for when something is done afterwards, that we can include it, or send that information out to council in general and not have it be good, you know, kicked out to another meeting.
I don't want to gloss over what Mr. LaChance said about sometimes it would be challenging or a problem. Can you speak more to that? What would that look like?
Yeah, sure. So I guess to elaborate what I was saying is probably I would expect a third of the meetings at the Planning and Zoning Commission on Wednesday nights in 2026, for example, would be public hearings where we'll be turning around to a city council packet the next day. So the Wednesday before your meeting, public hearing happens. The next morning, sometimes those go late. So the next morning, staff is preparing everything that happened at Planning and Zoning Commission and putting it together in a packet for you. But it's not every Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is a public hearing. So that's why there's a lot of work that gets done at work sessions. So it's less than half of the times that would be an issue, but it would still considerable. If we were to have, for example, if we were to have a deadline before noon on Thursday to submit to the city clerk, and the deputy city clerk course, need some time to compile everything. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so just what would end up, like, when it doesn't work out, when it doesn't go well, what would end up happening?
What would, if for some reason the packet was, due to the deputy city clerk, right now we have a Thursday 1 PM deadline for all department heads to submit to the deputy city clerk, so it can be published, on Friday.
Okay.
If that were to get bumped up earlier, then that means there's, to Thursday morning or Wednesday, then we would essentially have to postpone the decision at city council, the public hearing at city council that follows the planning and zoning commission meeting by at least 2 weeks. Sometimes if it's 5 to 10 months, sometimes 3 weeks, which could impact like ordinances and, land use decisions.
So this, I mean, that to me seems like a fairly big deal. And I think, one of our intents is to make sure we have a business day to ask staff questions if we have questions about the packet. And so technically you do that Monday. But currently the packets come out on Friday, correct? That's the goal. So then we do have Monday to ask questions. Although I'm sure I could feel kind of rushed sometimes, maybe to staff if there's like, they have a question for tomorrow night. I guess actually we have 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, to reply. I would be kind of curious, Mayor, to hear from council members 1 at a time how important like a Thursday send out is, because it does, like, that sounds like it has hazard that I don't want to loss of.
Councilmember Clerk, may I say one more thing on that? You mentioned, city council members reaching out to staff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's assuming that it's appropriate to go directly to the department head, and not go directly to the city administrator. Staff welcomes, council members to call and ask, you're all, even with land use applications, you can call, email staff, ask questions directly. And so that can happen on a Monday, Tuesday. We do not mind at all.
Is that okay, Mayor, if we hear an individual?
Can I start at the end, not to put you on the spot?
Given your years of experience, then is a Friday deadline a bigger difference than Tuesday deadline for you, or?
I was always good to Friday, but when it went out Saturday,
Yeah.
it's like even sometimes Monday, that's a problem. As long as you get it on the day, it's fine.
Well, I think more time is always better. I agree with Tim, as long as we actually get it on Friday, and that hasn't been happening consistently for the last year. And then I wonder if there's an option to put the packet out basis, or is that even more problematic? Like, much of the packet is probably ready, with the exception of whatever happens once we have it on the exception, so they could get the bulk of the packet on Thursday. And 25% of the time we get a supplementary planning and zoning.
How confusing is that for council to track? I mean, I guess that's the other issue too, as long as people are accessing it, because I've seen, wait, I don't have that document. Someone's like, well, the packet was updated. So as long as that's not confusing, we can do that. As long as we're not creating more work for ourselves or for you.
I've only found it confusing in the past when we don't know what's been updated. But when they started identifying, like, here are the things that have been added.
Mhm.
then-
So that is more work for staff then, though.
Not really.
But so, I mean, we can do that, but just to know that if you want a list of what's been updated, it's not just a matter of updating the packet. We send an email with a list of everything that's been updated.
Friday's great when it happens on Friday. That's funny. That has been funny for me. Basically, 3 or 4 full days, depending on when it runs on Friday.
I wouldn't. If I had the extra day on Thursday, probably.
Really know, when I put this in, the reason why I put it in red is so we can talk about it. Because, I mean, the last thing I want to do is create more work for staff. It was already rather busy. I think, this stems from just a sense of not having enough time to read what was in the packet, but, they've been very consistent of late, and that is great. And I mean, personally, myself, I usually agree.
Friday's enough time.
Friday is not really the best for me, just with my work days. I think, I managed it by working on the weekend and, reading through one weekend, but that's honestly not ideal given my job. And I know a lot of incoming council members also full-time. Or at least a couple of them do. So, Thursday gives at least me the ability to review it on a Friday night. And then actually be able to enjoy a weekend. Obviously it's not to say that city council being on council doesn't come with its own sacrifice. But I think if it's reasonable for the vast majority of other items on the agenda, I don't see why not. I don't mind getting, I wouldn't mind getting an additional addition to the packet on a Friday. And in fact, we had that conversation as that being totally acceptable in certain circumstances, and it certainly seems like this circumstance, it would be more than acceptable to have an addition to it, to the packet. So it's maybe not as a stringent deadline, but receiving the bulk of the information by the Thursday would be very helpful in giving me the ability to review it Friday. Usually by the time I got it Friday, I wasn't really checking my city council email, to be honest. Just because it was after work hours. So it, maybe that's a reflection more on me, but I certainly do think it would be helpful to have that additional day to review and ask questions.
This came up for the work sessions, because we were getting packets relatively consistently late, and then we were also getting amendments and additions on Mondays and even on Tuesdays. I think if we had a complete packet on Friday, that I know that there are emergencies that come up, but it needs to be the exception rather than the rule. If we had a complete packet on Friday, that would be acceptable. I think if it can't be complete by Friday, then it's an item that needs to be moved to a future.
So where does that land?
I think the majority is saying Friday is totally fine.
Yeah.
We just need the packet to be delivered on time, and with very minimal additions afterwards.
Would it be possible to move it up to 5 o'clock on Friday rather than 6 o'clock on Friday?
I will, yes, we, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, so we can talk about that.
We had gone to Thursday only because we were expecting things to trickle in after the fact. And if it's complete, we could have it Friday afternoon. That seems acceptable.
Yeah, and I think the only objection that, we have is the shall. It cannot be shall. That is, if technology prohibits it. I think it should be more permissive than authoritarian, in the sense that, I'm going to say that there are obviously things that.
Responsibility for choice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we all agree that the goal is to get it out and get as much material to you as quickly as possible. But I'm going to tell you, there is probably going to be a time when you get the majority of your packet materials after Friday, and we are very sorry about that. But yeah, the goal is obviously if to get as complete a packet as possible to you on Friday.
I guess that's part of the frustration though, is that then this feels like we basically accomplished nothing, not really changing anything. At least from my perspective, like the intent of this was because we identified a problem. I don't know if there's some back end things that, maybe you can work on, but it truly, to me, felt like a problem as well. Of just consistently, and I would agree that it was consistent enough to where we didn't get the packets, or we got like very like large additions to things on a Monday or on a weekend, and that just is not reasonable.
What if we, in the byline, indicate something in expectation of when the agenda setting meeting is, because you could still push that up a day, is it? The packet was gonna be Thursday, and then just add the Wednesday items.
Okay, you totally lost me on an agenda setting meeting. We have agenda setting meetings, but that's completely different than
Okay,
when the packet comes out.
I'm saying, what you suggested when Rebecca asked you if Thursday was practical, you basically said, yes, we just would have to push up the
Deadline.
your internal deadline. Well, can we just do that anyway and still have activity on Friday? Therefore, the packet is assured to be read Friday consistently.
Well, but that's the whole issue with the planning department is that they can't meet that deadline. If we move the deadline
So
up,
that will be the only thing not in the packet by Thursday.
well, I mean, I can't guarantee. I can't guarantee that. I would say, yes, that's obviously the goal, but if we have an employee who's out sick or we have other things, yes, that they,
Sure.
but again, I mean, if it's the goal to do that, yes, we can certainly move the deadline up, understanding that planning will struggle to meet it at, in some portions, but yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
I think that is absolutely as a council.
I think, I think we're on a really good trend now. I think Mr. Lee's been really on it and very, very deliberate about, getting things done. I think this is, if we address it, if we talk about it, I think things have improved and will be consistent. And I think that, this is a document that we can always revisit this if things go off the rails. I would say, I would just selfishly would also be someone who would struggle with that earlier deadline. I really struggle with Thursday's deadline.
Before we leave Article 4, can we talk a little bit about how council members might be able to influence the agenda? I think it appears much later in the document. Council wants to do something, some other council member supports it.
Yeah, I can do that too, that, because it's certainly related. As you mentioned, we had pressed it in a much later section. It's not really in the same article. But we specifically did outline that for us to have something be brought up, the intent was that we had to have multiple council members, in this case two. We would bring it up during the city council report as an idea. Because we can't have discussions about those ideas, we just have kill it out to see if there's a second. Obviously, as council members, we can have discussions with one other council member about anything that brings up, so I think you do that work beforehand. But the idea would be that that's how we get something on the agenda. Without the discussion, I think, I forget exactly what it said, but that just kind of opens the door to be able to have it be an item. And if it's be an item on the agenda as a discussion item that was brought up by council.
I wonder if we should reference that later section in this article that talks about agendas.
Absolutely. Yes, it should be incorporated under agenda setting. And I would be in favor of a new business form, but I wouldn't make the new business form exclusive. I think it should be able to be done either way.
I left the new business form out. There's a reference to it. That's.
Yeah, there's a question in reference to it, yes. And I can't find.
Because they're in the.
Here's the page in the packet again.
Maybe.
Thank you.
I agree that there should be some guidance as to the well-baked idea should look like, but I agree, like sometimes the additional format might be helpful if there needs to be some kind of presentation or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
But having the ability to do it.
Yeah.
Quote unquote on the fly, I think is a nice option as well.
Yeah, sometimes some things come up in a meeting where it's like, well, I maybe would like to propose that. And yeah, I think this gives us the flexibility for both. But to your point, if I do wonder if there is something that's like a little bit more intentional, like things I brought up before, obviously include ordinances, and I've had that proposal before. For things like that, I do think might be appropriate to include something in our bylaws of more detail, like council members must help prepare the material or something like that. Just so that if we're coming up with the idea and it's something that council can actually do, like a legislative proposal, or something else, then I think it'd be appropriate for us to do some of that groundwork, some of that initial work, to get it ready to present to the rest of council, as well as to just alleviate some of the burden on staff. Obviously, we never alleviate all of it, and that's important to acknowledge, but just making sure we're also doing our part.
Going back to Rebecca's point, yeah, putting Article 13 from Article 4 would make this better sense.
Question regarding absences.
Regarding absences.
Maximum number of excused absences. 2004.
Unexcused is just complete and total no shows. So if you call and say, hey, I had COVID, that's it. That's an excuse. Yeah.
Is that 4 per term? Per year?
That was my question. That's a really good question.
That was a good point of
Yes,
clarification.
thank you.
Per year.
The initial discussion we had was per year.
I think that's the intent.
Yeah.
But I didn't figure out that unexcused was just a no-show. Is that in here somewhere?
It says that's for section 3B, but I don't see it in 3B.
So define unexcused.
Yeah.
I mean, right. What is excuse? I mean, a person who's absent is still potentially threatening a quorum. So I don't know that it serves you to say excused versus unexcused. I mean, I think it, pardon me?
Notification guideline.
I think the intention was, we still would have some accountability on the excused absences, through keeping on top of reporting that to the public. And we talked about having something on our website that would track, city council members' absences or attendance record. And largely, the reason why we said unexcused was based off other, bodies of legislation, and that opens the door for a different type of, action that we highlighted in that section.
Essentially.
Yeah, essentially, thank you. That was just-
It is a strange word, excuse, because that someone's judging whether your absence is merit or not. So
I think it's more unnoticed.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better word, because if someone says, well, I was excused because I texted and said, I'm busy.
I can point out this error that I made, it should be excused as per section 3D. So I think I like that, noticed shall be as per and,
Noticed and unnoticed.
That makes sense.
Section 3B, says you need to notify deputy city clerk, city. Says city manager throughout the document.
Yeah.
And it should say city administrator.
thank you.
To notify the deputy city clerk, city administrator, and the chair, we have to notify all three.
Good question. What do you guys think?
I think originally we discussed that you have to notify one of the three, but it has to be one of those three positions.
Maybe there would be helpful if there was a hierarchy too, because that would be easier for you all.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's helpful if one of us randomly knows and the others don't. So I think if it's, your first point of contact is the mayor.
Yeah, I was gonna
If
say,
the mayor is unreachable, the second point of contact is this, and your third point of contact is that.
I would agree with that.
If you're moving in from noticed to unnoticed, 4 is a lot. You're thinking of 4 times a year, you just blow it off and not tell anybody.
Well, and that's the reason it's such a strength.
That's actually consistent with the other discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason why it is worse, because it is a lot, it leaves nowhere for excuses and it's pretty objective, in terms of that it goes into the intermediate process, because you're right, that work is a lot, and the fact that you would no show for which I don't mean, notice is like, that is exactly why we have that.
So is there any limit on notice?
Not as written.
And part of that, I think, is, for two of us on this task force have times where
There are built-in conflicts. There are times when you just absolutely can't.
Yeah.
just because.
But there are times when, certainly for me, that I'm completely unavailable, but I can make sure that everyone's aware and we can then plan the forum. It's a problem, but it can make it less of a problem.
The only request I think I would have on staff is if you do miss a meeting, please watch at least some of the meeting, because sometimes we get questions that were in a prior meeting, and that's frustrating for us if we have to update on a report or something that was made in a prior meeting. So, and if you aren't in attendance and there's a vote taken on something and you disagree with it, that is, business has been conducted. So I think that's the only frustrating thing is we find sometimes people are absent and they'll say, I'm sorry if I wasn't at the other meeting, but is there an update on X? And there was an update provided previously. So if you're absent, the meetings can be, if you have the bandwidth to watch the meeting, that would be great.
Do we have that as a requirement or recommendation?
A recommendation.
I think that's right.
I think that'll be coming out as a real.
I mean, it's right up there with the requirement that we read all the terms of service of social media, please.
Under Article 8,
What page?
this would be in the packet, page 87. Point F. I'd like to keep that.
Article 8.
Article 8, point F, so page 87. I would like council member to be able to make an inquiry of the speaker. I understand if we can't turn it into a discussion, but I think the ability to ask a clarifying question is important. So I'd like to keep that.
Do you feel like it's kind of at the discretion of the chair then to?
I think, well, yes, and it would be the discussion of the chair as to whether the question is valid or not, too. So I think the chair has revoking rights. But to just say that somebody can make a comment and we're not allowed to ask any questions, I think is
I think
a disservice.
I think the point then, I think I like the clarifying question.
Yeah.
Instead of just a question.
Yeah, but
And I
this-
think if
yeah.
it goes through like, may I ask a clarifying question, and then, the chair would have the opportunity to say, as long as it's not a discussion. Or just the three or
That
four
makes perfect
steps.
sense.
And I think for the purposes of rules, it's always good to remember that these rules apply to not only you all who know and want to be great public servants, but what happens if there's a problem at some point and you need to rely on the rules to rein in something. It's good to have parameters, knowing that, like, thinking through what could go wrong and what would the rules be used to implement if there was a beef happening between a member of the public and a city council member. How could someone say, look, a clarifying question is appropriate, but beyond that, no, this isn't the appropriate forum for that.
That's the reason we put time limits on it.
And I think the same would apply to section G of after all the public comments is done, like the council can say, may I respond to such and such, you know, and I think that would be an appropriate filter for Commissioner as well.
Sorry, go ahead. Rebecca.
I was just gonna say, as long as we're on this page, can look at Aaron, I also. I was a little confused because I had to believe there are times when a member of the public might approach the city administrator, for example, and say, I'd really like to talk about the Dark Sky Initiative. And then the city administrator puts that on the agenda 2 or 3 months out, but that doesn't require 2 council members and mayor.
That's a good question, this, because
No, because the city administrator is in charge of the agenda. So like, let's say the chamber says, we'd like to do an update on what's going on in the chamber, or someone says, we'd like to make a presentation from Bright Start. Those are, I mean, I think I've come to you with the ones that have been a little wonky and kind of let you know how we've navigated some of the wonky ones, but no, requests to be on the agenda normally would come through me and we'd figure out where they would fall on the agenda.
So what's the scenario envisioned under?
if it's not like an organization, like nonprofit or, you know, one of our community partners or something like that, that wants to do a presentation, but like my neighbor Bill wants to come in and give a presentation about all the things that he, you know, sees wrong. Something like that. But that's longer than 3 minutes. And we have had someone come and say, well, I can't say this in 3 minutes. I want a presentation. But they're not like, they're like a member of the public. And we've been wrestling over, you know, to.
No, I kind of like the way that works. I like the way that's written because it's just like if we brought it up in our council reports, but initiated by a member of the public and then follows the same procedure. I think that makes sense.
Essentially, it's just giving council the power to say, actually, city administrator, we would like to see this person present.
And that requires 2 people saying yes, and yeah. Just an organizational point on page 87 under section 2. We've got 2 CDs. They just need to be lettered.
I have too much.
CD twice. Just for clarification.
So E comes after G.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not gonna tell you what time I was finishing this.
I want to circle back to something on page 81.
Can we stay on page 87 real quick?
Sure.
Hang on, let me write this down.
And then on section 3, there's no E. We go straight to F.
Section.
Yeah, just the very next section down, you can be at F, so just make me E. David, thank you for putting all this together.
So on page 87, curious how F and G interact, because G says we can respond to public comments after all the members of the public have spoken. So, that would not be clarified questions, which I could have asked during the comment period. This would be some kind of response.
Yeah, I think, you know, there have been a couple times where it seems like public comment would be, you know, any concern or question that they raised would be easily answered with a few words from the guys. And I think that is appropriate. I think for G, it is a little bit less, like I think it protects more against turning into a discussion because everybody's gone from the lectern. And, you know, we can just like spot answer things without them being, yes, but, you know, like, that's how I interpret it.
So is that, how do you, so you will end up needing to either change or revise one or the other, but the first portion of every city council meeting on your agenda you'll need to revise that to be consistent. So it says public comment is an opportunity for the public to share information or opinions with the city council. The council cannot engage in a conversation on the comments, nor can the council debate any of the items. For necessary follow-up action, you can request it staff. So if you want to update, are you changing that?
You know, I mean, I think there's two different things between quick answers that we've provided, and actually like, there's a bunch to say. It's not in G. Would you guys want to combine F and G and say inquiries and responses after everybody's done?
No, because I think the intention between an inquiry is to get a response. And the intention with G is just to avoid conversation. And I don't know that there's really any conflict in the statement, because the intention is still to not have a conversation, whether it be within council or with the member of public. It is simply to make a statement, whether it be to answer a question or just to clarify a point that may have been made during public comment. I don't think there's any intention to have a conversation, so I don't know that there's really any conflict.
It would probably add to your process though, because for G, you would need to say, does anyone on the council have any comments about the public comments we heard?
I don't think that. I think like if something, like I know a couple times Cisco has said, you know, can I just answer this, you know, like just quietly. So I think that is something that, again, a council member could request, like, may I give a brief response?
And that's fine, as long as we know that it's just a question to the chair.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
all,
happens while the person's still at the podium. And G happens after everyone is sat down, so they need to say something.
yes, the duty needs to say
But having both of those, I think, is critical.
Page 81, section 5, evaluation of the city administrator. I think it's just important that we clarify any points, whether if we just agree with it, that's fine, but just have a little bit of a discussion about that. I think that's a very big responsibility of council, and we've done it in various ways. And I think after now we have an opportunity to really reflect on that and to see if this bylaw section really does it justice to the process that we want.
My goal here and like also lending from other municipalities is really to have a format and a formulaic approach so that the city administrator knows what they're being evaluated on and what that process will look like.
Can you tell me what page Exhibit A is on the packet?
Exhibit A is not here.
Okay, I couldn't find it, so I just wanted to make sure.
Yes. I have, I did, send out some parts of that, you know, when we talked.
Right.
But my idea would be to essentially have that list of roles and responsibilities.
I think the only question that I would have, and I would ask for council to weigh in on this, is right now, the city administrators' evaluations and performance reviews are solely the purview of the mayor. I think at some point, potentially, there needs to be a mechanism to bring in a third party. We discussed something like that before, and I don't know if or where we would address that.
So I did ask the mayor of Cedar Edge, because they were the ones who had that as a
Right.
motion.
Right.
And he was like, oh, we just put that in there, we've never used it.
Well, and I think I would expect that it would never be used, but at the same time, right now, it starts and ends with you, and there is no.
Do you want to?
If there were concerns, there's nowhere to go.
So one of the things that Cedar Edge did was like, the evaluation may take place in one of these three formats. So maybe have that similar structure.
I do think that style serves well if there is concerns with council for whatever reason on any evaluation. I think having options present for council that are objective and not arbitrary, that either council gets up or for the mayor and stuff, I think having that written inside of our bylaws serves protection for everyone.
Well, and it takes a little bit of the onus off the mayor's office, essentially. But however council wants to handle it, it just, right now, it puts all the pressure on the mayor.
And I think more importantly, it also doesn't give council any alternative options.
I think that's what we had assessed originally.
Yes.
There are no alternative courses.
And if that's, if we end up going with, or the council goes with option A, every single year before everything that's great, but giving the opportunity for council to choose, well, maybe we want to have someone else do this or some other option, I think it's always beneficial. But other than that, I would agree. Looks pretty good.
No, there was a big discussion of the next week coming up.
We're not doing it that way this year, though. We've had an executive session, we're talking about another executive session. And this process doesn't envision that. So is this year like a one-off?
Ooh, that's a good catch, because it shouldn't be a one-off.
We're gonna quit doing executive sessions.
Well, if we do this by, oops, sorry, let's see where the chat, because they kind of like had a ABC option.
Yeah.
So that approach could be, oops.
Too, because that's where city council will assess the administrative performance.
I wonder if it would make sense to have that be like the very first step of all of it, is to go into executive session and have a conversation about what option, if we go the options way, what option city council wants to take for review. If we don't go through options, this will give us an opportunity for us to have that discussion of what the review is going to look like. And maybe then there's a future executive session similar to the one we had this time around. But I do think there should at least be that initial executive session to discuss like what way we're going to evaluate.
Some direction from council for the mayor to follow would be nice, and doing that in an initial executive session would make sense.
I don't know.
How in the world you put it in there, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Watch.
City council shall. City council
It's not.
must. It's forced to.
But yeah, I think that just extends the
process of this section E, which
Mm-hmm.
doesn't exist.
Yeah, so it's here, it's too much for me to do. Okay. What else?
Going backwards, but Article 5, I'd like to talk a little bit about council member communications with the city attorney, council member communications with department heads, and also the staff in this document. Council member communication staff isn't even envisioned. And I just heard Jacob say that if we had questions about a planning and zoning issue, for example, we were free to call staff. I think we need to protect staff and department heads to some extent from council members, and also the attorney, because I could envision a scenario when a council member might decide the city attorney is their new best friend, and just chew up lots and lots of attorney time. And that's expensive for the city. So there should be some parameters around the city council member communications with all three of those categories: city attorney, department heads, and staff.
I think section 3B addresses that, about the question on packet, that we should, for the question of the city and city admin or city attorney that can be addressed prior to the meeting, the councilor should contact the city administrator appropriate department head or city attorney unless directed otherwise by the city administrator. So basically, the city administrator can say, hey, things come through me, or write them and CC me, or like, whatever their assessment is, considering what the demands on staff are, considering, the expensive attorney time, that sort of thing. I think that's kind of within the purview of the city administrator. And so I think B kind of addresses that.
B does address that, but it does definitely state that it is reasonable to contact the appropriate department or city attorney with questions,
Unless directed otherwise.
right?
So,
But how do we, to my understanding, staff is going to direct it otherwise universally, so how do we address that in the bylaws?
well, I'm not sure that it needs, I mean, I think that is something that it may change with different city administrators, it may change with different staffing. And, like, I think the city administrator can be clear up front and say, here's how I would like this contact to roll, as a baseline. And let's go from there. And then if, then that can flex and change according to situations of what the city administrator determines.
Well,
But I don't think we have to etch it in stone here.
Yeah,
because
I like the way it's written, that's
Yeah.
great. And then that would, if there was a conflicting order, then it breaks it up as a point of discussion. So I like that.
Yes.
The way it's written works.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder if it almost makes sense for that to be like I don't know what the appropriate timeline is, but reviewed every now and then of like, okay, we've done it this way for this amount of time. Does it make sense to maybe loosen or maybe tighten? Because they're asking way too many questions. Or, I think some opportunity for it to have some sort of consistent review opportunity.
Every year,
Um,
it's in the bylaws. So it's shall review it annually.
Oh, the bylaws, okay.
Thanks.
I mean, but specifically on this, make it a point to review that. If it is every year's with the bylaws, that's fine. I think just giving us an opportunity to really discuss that, what did work, what didn't work, and be able to be transparent about that to council things important.
See, now I'm noticing all the places that say shall.
There's a lot of shit.
But you have to stand up and say it very sternly, and you have like a scout.
Where's the gavel?
Thank you.
I think we need someone in the bylaws where, for attendance, we all have to say present. Your bylaw.
I don't know.
I don't want to turn into something like the Lions Club. I'm afraid that everybody is lying, so it's a little.
Really? You do?
We do.
Oh my God, that's really funny. Maybe we should do that.
Like, so back when Bud Elliott was alive, he had a bedpan that he would carry around, and if somebody didn't call somebody else lying so-and-so, then he would carry the bedpan over your head with a bucket.
This works.
This works.
I have a question,
Yes, please.
observation. So this is feeling like a work session. And maybe that, not that that's inappropriate, but maybe that's better done with the new council members.
Well, this is by no means going to be completed and judged by this current council. I really, really think it's important for especially you three for a rolling off council to review and have some. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this now is to make sure that this current experienced council can look it over and comment. And then we won't likely have the approval of it until, Because, legal has to look it over. Let me take out my shelves.
And I also think that I brought this up in the agenda setting meeting today, just based upon some of the things that came up. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to let staff look at it as well. If there's conflicts that we didn't think of that will create headaches, because it's better to have folks look at it now and have those things be flagged than have it create something where you want to pass it and it doesn't, there's issue once it's passed.
I think that makes sense. Only being the Tuesday.
Do you all have this now in front of you? So, if something strikes you after the fact, please let me know.
When is the next meeting of the task force? Okay, so I was gonna say if there was a deadline for folks to get any additional thoughts to you.
End of the year. On the first meeting. I mean, that's gonna be the last chance for the. Party. First meeting.
Page 84 in the process.
Age 100, that weird format is still in that.
Oh, that's diagonal format?
Yeah. No. I'm trying to take it. I'll be back.
On page 84, section 5, protest. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate having that in the bylaws. Ultimately, the attorneys are going to want to weigh in and see if it conflicts, but having the ability to take a protest if council does something that somebody doesn't appreciate, I think is important to have. I would hope that it never gets used, but I think it's important to have included.
I do want to talk a little bit about the red comment in after that, because I also, along with that, I think it is important that even if you don't agree with the determination of council, that you don't go out in public and be like, and council isn't be like, yeah, this is what we arrived at, and this was the determination. And not necessarily to own that personally, but to acknowledge it, to support it, like this, the body determines.
I think this is the place that gives opportunity to have a way to properly disagree with the decision, because I do think it is important that council has an opportunity to state why, especially if it's just one council member. And a protest, in the format that it says it is, it certainly still gives the ability to then go to the public and be like, as long as that's a set expectation as well, maybe we have to include that in this section of like, though you may protest the choice, you should still probably follow the rest of what you wrote and read, or shall follow the rest of what you wrote and read. I do still want to give an opportunity to protest those. I mean, there's certainly times where it is like just that big of a difference between choices, and it's not a small thing. And I wouldn't want to, pigeonhole someone into not giving them an opportunity to speak.
Well, having an opportunity to speak at council and after the events is much better than the alternative of having somebody speak outside.
Yeah.
This way you're still supporting the council's decision, but you have the ability to register your own opinion.
Yeah.
For lack of a better.
Is this referencing during a city council meeting or?
Yeah.
Public at large in general?
Because I had envisioned that in council, like a determination is made, and then somebody wants to just.
Yeah, the roll call sometimes.
Dissenting opinion,
Right, and then somebody has the ability to.
Talk after the vote has been taken.
Yes.
But just.
That opens up what if someone wants to say something in response to the protest? I mean, I think I don't know if you are going to follow Bob's rules of order or Robert's rules of order. There's a whole process to that, is that once there's a vote taken, there's conclusion to a matter and the agenda is allowed to move on. So at some point, you'll have to decide at what point you're gonna
And there we
finish
can't,
the
like,
agenda item.
Discuss why we're voting the way we are before we vote. Like, I'm voting yes because, well, we can explain why we're voting that way. Like, that's also,
It's done that before.
I know, and it's not.
Maybe trying to avoid it, is that?
I think it is not appropriate to announce as we're doing the voting.
Because you have the ability to sway the next voter.
You had your opportunity to say something prior or discussion, that you shouldn't like explain why you're voting a certain way as we're going down the roll.
It'd be interesting to hear from the city attorney if they think that we can make this something that's acceptable. Because I think it's a valid.
I mean, doesn't that just happen in the discussion though? Like,
That's-
if you're trying to make a point of, say why we should vote no on something. You make your pitch, you make your argument during the discussion, and then people I think should assume that's why you voted no, or vice versa.
Yes, and I think this is more so like, if council, like, let's say I wanted to vote no on something, all of y'all were against. But I didn't know that, and none of us knew that, because maybe the discussion wasn't fruitful enough, or, you know, we just weren't sure, whatever the reason is. After the vote happens, I'm very disappointed with the way council said, and I want to be able to speak on it and say, well, you know, actually, I want to protest this because these are my reasons I disagree with council. Maybe there has to be some acknowledgement of this is still council's choice, this is still council vote, and of course we vow to, or we shall support it in the way the personal decision is. But ultimately, I think it still is important, you know, as a representative, to be able to give a dissenting opinion or like a disagreement with council, even if it's now what the rule of law is.
So maybe the wording is wrong. Maybe instead of protest, it needs to be someone would be able to voice a dissent. But not necessarily voice a protest.
And I'm wondering if there should be some guardrails to like what can be,
Yeah.
you know, what you can cover.
And a time limit, I just,
And the time limit.
Robert's Rules of Order says the discussion debate happens before a vote on a main motion. Voting on its merits, alternating speakers for and against, and ending with the chair putting the question. After a vote, discussions usually stops. You can reopen the topic with a specific motion to reconsider. But I think that Councilmember Tharp's position is accurate, is Robert's Rules of Order contemplates the discussion and what you're gonna vote, how I'm gonna vote, or what my thoughts are happen before the vote, and once the vote happens, the item is closed for discussion.
Mr. Hartman, give us a scholarly opinion.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute like crazy and my entire computer shut down. So I had to completely leave and now I am back. So sorry, I heard you guys saying the city attorney and I was trying to, anyway, I'm back. This protest section, there are a few things that I pulled out as kind of specific comments of things I don't like. And this is one that I don't like because of kind of what you guys said. I mean, deliberation and discussion, to me, that's your time to protest. I'm not really sure what the section is doing other than kind of opening up this other like post hoc keeping alive period for a question. I mean, you know, once you voted upon a question under, I'm a Robert's Rules guy, not a Bob's Rules guy, but they're pretty similar. Once the question's been voted upon, well, once you have deliberation, you have deliberation, and then the chair calls a vote, and then you vote, and then it's done. I don't know what that protest section is doing. I mean, I'm of course happy, like, if you guys have some non-legal thoughts about what you want it to do, I can massage it in, but I'm not really sure what that's doing. That is kind of my learned take, is that it seems to create endless discussion by design.
I also, to me, seems unnecessary because
yeah,
anybody's free. I mean, if I'm unhappy with the vote, I can write a letter the next, and there's plenty of things you can do to indicate your
Well,
Dissatisfaction with the way council voted.
actually,
Like internally. I mean, I think we
I
also.
think the intention is trying to keep some of the money in order to be added.
yeah,
Because I do think that we are obligated to acknowledge that, you know, and say, this is whatever it was, like, this is a decision by the council body. And to just acknowledge that and support it in that way instead of denigrating the process or denigrating this decision.
yeah,
That's also important. That's kind of elsewhere.
right, and that's exactly, like, this kind of gives a lever of, in my mind, it gives an opportunity for someone to say it in that meeting and not go out to the public and have it be an ongoing thing. An opportunity for dissent without it having to be more against the bylaws. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, is an opportunity to, because I mean, quite frankly, I'm sorry, sometimes I don't know which way the vote's gonna go, even after 5 hours of discussion.
But it's not going to be in public.
Yeah, it would be in the same meeting. And my intention would be for it to be in the same meeting and then there'd be guardrails around how long. Again, it's not discussion. It's very clear that it's not a discussion item. We're not discussing or deliberating. And again, I think it would just be an opportunity for someone to, you know, show their displeasure with a vote and move on and leave it at that and be able to have an opportunity to say, I have a displeasure with the action from the state.
But then you might have an obligation, in fairness, to go down the line and give everybody else an opportunity to explain why they voted in favor of it. And so I think what you're opening up is the endless debate that, you know, I think that Robert's rules contemplates the deliberation and debate happens, and that once it's done, it's finished. And I think if you choose to write a letter to the editor, that's your prerogative. But I think that you're opening up a can of worms with this.
What about moving it inside of the discussion and just having an arguments for, arguments against at the end of the discussion?
I think that's good. I think Cisco's point was spot on. I like this idea in theory, but I think it's important the council understands that if they disagree with something, it needs to be argued while we are deliberating. I think you need to be leaving it until after the fact is doing the entire process of the service. So I would agree more with Cisco, and I would put the onus on council. If there's something about this that doesn't smell right to you, it's your prerogative to speak up and voice that concern. I think the protest after the fact does create more problems than it cures, even though it might give somebody the ability to grandstand. I don't know that it solves any problems.
I don't want to interrupt one more time, but I just want to like reiterate, like, you guys are starting to try to put parameters around deliberation. And, you know, I would caution you from doing that. And I would, you know, opening up a time to discuss what you wanted to say because you didn't know how the vote went after you knew how the vote went. I mean, that's the purpose of deliberation. You need to close the question. So again, I don't know, and maybe I feel more strongly about this than I thought I did, but I would be very, very careful about post hoc deliberation of a question that's already been decided upon, no matter how you feel about how it went.
That's fine. Then I would want it to be very abundantly clear that, like, we have to have, I mean, I know we can't force discussion, but we should probably try to structure discussion to be able to, like, really be able to read the room, really. Because, like, I mean, there are times where certain, you know, council members don't say anything at all. And quite frankly, like, there are decisions where that, you know, if that council member votes a certain way after the fact, yeah, I mean, what I would want to avoid is for then council members who are so displeased with that and the inability to have a discussion about it, then go to the public and it creates a distress. Because I can totally see that. And in fact, I feel like we were very close to that situation within this council already. And to me, that's kind of like the ability to be able to say something in a format where it's under the guise of council, gets rid of that pressure valve. But you know, I don't mind the idea of doing it inside of the discussion, but then it like onus is on the rest of the council to actually discuss it and be open and honest about the options. And I think there has to be something in here of like kind of addressing that, because otherwise it's just gonna.
Is that something that could be added in code of conduct? Is that the active discussion and participation is expected?
Right.
Maybe that's something that we could write in a different area that addresses this and makes an expectation that you're expected to read the packet and to be familiar with the subject and to weigh in with valid questions or concerns
The
or
reading of the packets.
but something in the code of ethics that says if you have an opinion on something, and I don't know how you do it, if you had an opinion, it's your responsibility to speak up.
Right. I mean, the post hoc protest seems like giving people ways to just make their feelings known, and the vote is what makes your feelings known.
The vote makes your feelings known, and I think a post hoc protest would also undermine our civic standing with the community. I think that could really be a damage to that.
Has there been an instance where, I know it hasn't happened in the 2 years that I've been on, but where someone has gone to the public against their own, against council, the council member is, I don't know.
Yes, it wasn't to the figure, but yes. And it created this same dynamic as a protester dissenting voice would.
No, we always have the option to call for a straw man vote, right? Or an official vote.
I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
So yes,
We
yeah.
don't know how people are gonna vote, and if the discussion isn't fulsome enough, we could ask for a straw man, and then if 2 people voted no, we could query those 2 people. What are you thinking?
So would it make sense to allow a council member to call for a straw man vote then? Because I mean, that does solve the whole dilemma here.
I think it is something that we currently do, whether it's written in there or not.
Right, it's not written. But
Maybe that's something that should be in the bylaws as well. The ability to call a straw man vote before a
Straw poll, not straw.
sorry, yeah.
Thank you.
Or just to inquire how people are leaning. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that happens more often than, you know, to say, can we get a sense of how people are leaning on this? Then
And Dana's done that several times, and that does tend to.
Yeah, and I think just putting it in writing would solve my whole dilemma of not having an opportunity to know how it's going so that you can adequately have that discussion.
So just adding in the bylaws, the ability to call a straw poll before a formal vote.
Comments on that?
Not a straw
What,
man.
what was the question to me? Sorry. The question was, can you add something into the bylaws about a straw poll?
Yeah, just the ability to
Request.
request a straw poll in, voice vote discussions, things that will be voice vote.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could. Again, this is kind of my same point about you're putting guardrails on deliberation, though. Because when you start defining things you can do during deliberation, maybe you should start defining things you can't do, and you're going to start to get to exclusive lists. Again, it's up to you guys. I don't want to help you make, policy decisions about your own rules, but these are not really striking me as things that belong in bylaws. They're just striking me as things that come up during discussion.
I like the way it thinks.
I know.
I think it's fine.
It makes sense.
This is why we have a lawyer in the room.
But it's up to us to remind the new council members that asking this question is appropriate.
Yeah.
For responsibility.
A cultural norm.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
I could add that just as a little note in my scripts for public hearings.
I mean, that's something.
Okay, that might be easier. Okay.
One question.
Yeah.
I'm curious if, how to phrase this. So we've had a couple of hearings where we talk about, was one of the criteria is, does it cause hardship? And I think there's been people using the word differently. And that's the best example I can think of that it made me think of. Do cities reference like a dictionary or something that if there's dispute on terms, how is that term defined?
I think the definition provides in the actual criteria.
So I can add something to your brother.
Oh, was that question in the context of like land use? and zoning?
Yeah.
Specifically, that's where it comes up. Yeah.
Okay, if it's not within your definition sections of your subdivision, your zoning code, the planning profession does use a standard industry book of definitions. And occasionally I quote that in your staff reports.
So it would be appropriate for us to ask you to define a term if we're
Yes.
unclear.
Yeah, and I would reference a, widely accepted text.
And I mean, that being said, I think in our typical criteria for COAs, there's two that I recall that have a little bit of a subjective tinge to them. That maybe don't lend themselves to firm definitions like, like impact on the, like that has a subjective interpretation to it. And actually, when we have our legal training, I've used a lot of Mr. Light's time trying to pin him down on some of these criteria and how to interpret and how to incorporate public comment or not. And he's said some really wise things. So I think that legal training I'll ask him. Okay. All right.
Doing a really good job. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your patience with this.
It's so nice to have a few questions. Because it started so broad. The whole thing is.
Well, this is the input of everybody else in the task force was just the conclusion. It was really, really gratifying to work with. Okay, well, I will make another draft. Yeah, please go ahead.
Article 11, paragraph 8 on page 94, you're talking about development council members. And that's in red, add anything else here? And I don't know if it's appropriate to add here or not, but I keep coming back and sure I get Dana, just to have council members involved in local community groups on some level. Like paying attention to what's happening on the library board or the opera house or the PDC or any number. I think that's helpful.
And you guys think?
Does it make sense for it to be well, I mean, like, I think it would be appropriate to mention it as an opportunity, right? Yeah.
So it is an opportunity, not necessarily as a
Yeah.
requirement or even an expectation, but participate in the greater community.
Yeah, another option for the knowledgeable community.
Oh, sure. You had another one too? Oh, Rebecca, I thought you said you did too.
Oh, yes, and I can't remember what page it's on. Do we have a definition for disruptive conduct?
It's kind of like,
So we're
moral
looking at-
turpitude.
I can't remember where it is.
Yeah.
Was that in the context of like the public?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it might have been under like city council members, censure.
It was pretty early in the.
Page 92 is decorum.
I do think it's something that we lack is there, and I think in here there's a reference to we want to put together something like a code of ethics. Something like, we could also put together like just general, at the risk of saying what we can do and then having to define what we can't do. But general, well, yeah.
Hadn't we talked about going to and trying to solicit some other code of ethics and see if there was one that we could adopt?
Maybe, but if not,
It's okay, I get it.
Generally, I do think it'd be important for council to have a very clear black and white code of ethics. And just kind of expectations around certain things, where it's not really questionable about what the right thing and the wrong thing is to do. Because not only does that protect an individual council member, but it also allows, us to be very blunt with the community and the public as to what our code of ethics are and what we do and don't have a problem with, and for them to give us feedback, like maybe that actually isn't aligned with what they do.
So maybe that's just a future thing, is to do research on existing code of ethics and see if there's one we could.
Well, that's right, that is. What do we call it?
Now it's shadow.
Okay. All right.
I have one final kind of overarching one, maybe it's covered under the new business form, but I really like the task forces or work groups that we've been to be lately. And there's nothing like that in the bylaws. And maybe the intent is that would be new business and the council member would say, I can do the work group on X.
Yeah, it actually fits in our, us to the authority to form, I think they say subcommittees, but I think we prefer task forces because it isn't this. If there is a sort of requirement to do that, they're building. So we have that.
And it's a little unclear to me how many council members can participate on the work group and how many members, other members at large, and the community needs to participate, they need to be noticed. All that stuff.
They do.
That's all I'm saying.
But it would be nice to have subcommittees that have the ability to have fewer members. There's some smaller thing that 2 or 3 council members are doing something that doesn't require that large. It'd be nice to be able to vote.
But I don't think that we can limit some of that to like bylaws task force. I think it was essential that there were 20 of us on that. And
Sure.
that's fundamentally different than department task force, which is more important to have
Yeah.
representatives of different groups. So that. Okay. All right. Had enough of it. Great, I really appreciate your guys' input. Okay, well, moving on, yes, we'll just move on to the next heavy agenda item.
Mayor, is it possible to take a break?
It is after 8, isn't it? You're right.
Was that an hour and a half?
But who's counting? Appreciated the robust discussion.
All right. See, it's worth coming in for, right?
Okay, it's great.
I don't say that to get just started, but I see you did.
Yeah. It's been a year. We'll see you next year. Sometimes I have to like slow myself down and like, hey, like, don't always just focus on the candidates. You know, like there's always gonna be stuff there. You'll do a good job, but at the same time, it's
Something someone said to me
so consumed with it.
well, a while back. I remember someone explaining this. Because those emergencies pop up and you have nothing. If so, it's actually important. Like,
There is probably, the job, obviously, but yeah, you're right.
it's not.
Yeah, I can figure out. Okay, so I think let's walk here on 85. That was us going. I guess not. Yeah, that's policy, the one. Those aren't athletes, they're always pushing so hard. That's right. There we go.
See, I think is 2026 can be less time spent with the rail yard or Milton.
Oh, I think what we're thinking is, we have an enforcement strategy on those 28 unit condominium buildings. That may not, we'll see, may not be working.
Right.
They're almost dried in, they're probably a few months away from CO. But I heard from the grapevine, I haven't confirmed this, that John's getting out of his, he's selling his interest in that partnership, which means that, so it's like, so what's next?
If he sells his interest in it, then you're kind of starting from.
Because we were holding the CO. So yeah.
Then it just becomes a punitive thing.
We are.
Yeah.
All right, unmuted.
So the next, agenda is, kind of revisiting, we've talked about Senate Bill 295-276 before, which was the state's update to, reinforce some of our immigration protections in the state. And when I went to the National League of Cities, I had the opportunity to talk to a bunch of other leaders from cities and learning about how they are sort of navigating that. And so I thought we should revisit a couple of things. One is I'm going to ask Christian to just step us through Senate Bill 25-276 again. And then I'd like to revisit an idea that we discussed earlier this year, which is an ordinance kind of outlining our compliance with state law. Earlier in the year, it seemed that maybe, we were concerned, but nothing had happened, and maybe this was overacting, and maybe this would attract attention. And I think now, nearly a year in, we're in a very different space. So I'd like to revisit it. So Christian, can you talk to us a bit?
Yeah, so we, Senate Bill 25-276, very broadly, what it does is specifically talks about data and privacy, and the inability for municipalities and other localities to share individuals' data or other such things with authorities without a judicial. There is a law previously, which I don't remember which it is, that establishes collaboration between departments, specifically federal agencies, to conduct the immigration-related things and local entities and no resources. There's a law that already kind of establishes that we aren't, supposed to collaborate unless there's a judicial warrant. This one specifically talks more about the privacy, so like hidden names or addresses of individuals and what their status might be, and our ability to, or rather inability to collaborate unless there's a judicial warrant. So it's really just an escalation of that step that they'd taken a year previously. The mayor passed around, I think that's only to play. The mayor passed around an ordinance that I worked with Voces Unidas to write. This is modified since the beginning of the year. This is something that was written at the beginning of the year, but has been modified to be more appropriate to now. So it removes any mention of a proclamation of what we are. A large part of that is based off discussion that we've had as a council, as well as some committee members. The vast majority of the desire is really that we are upholding the law. And this, is specifically highlighted in the purpose of the legislative intent is to follow the law. So that kind of covers us in that sense, or hopefully. And it just kind of gives the community an opportunity to look at exactly what policies we are talking about when it comes to the ordinance. And that's something that the community has expressed interest in seeing us do. A large part of that is just because it's not given that people follow the state law, unfortunately. Other communities may not be. Obviously, we don't know until proven otherwise, but certainly there are situations where that might not happen. It also adds a little bit of protection to the city, making it extremely clear to our employees that this is where we stand. And the expectation is abundantly clear that, we, especially as a council, but as a city, stand at these laws and we will follow these procedures. Kind of, making it squarely on this of an individual to screw up and not the city as a why. Kind of hopefully establishing that, as a city, we are going to be participating unless there is a judicial warrant, unless there is a formal process taken by the federal agencies. So realistically, to me, this seems like step one before we get to the next steps that the mayor is going to speak about, that she's seen other cities do. But the intent of this is truly to be very abundantly clear with the community and with ourselves that we do stand behind this. Is there any questions or?
Is there a copy for us over here?
Oh, sorry.
It's not available to put in the packet.
It's because this is a super draft and up
Yeah.
for consideration and not up for being an actual ordinance in this meeting, is why I chose to leave it out.
So if we were to consider it as an ordinance in the future, it would be in fact.
Of course, yes.
And there would be a lot of blanks.
But currently the intent is really just to provide us like a very rough draft. It has to go through a bunch of other steps before it does get considered, as an item, but yeah.
Just don't like being handed, like, document, just a review on five. And then have that form of opinion about it after a modified review. Just doesn't seem appropriate to me.
I don't think we're considering this specific, I mean, we're talking about the topic and wanted to give a potential idea. I have things that I would like, as Christian alluded to, that I would like to talk about and just get people's feedback on, or just like a testing for a level of interest, I guess.
Okay, so what's the outcome of our discussion of what we wanted to hear?
If any of the things that we're gonna talk about or are talking about, if council has an interest in pursuing further, why not?
I do for sure. Time to pursue further.
I guess for staff clarification, pursue what further?
Well, we haven't talked about my stuff.
Enacting an ordinance in this spirit. On this topic.
Like I said, to start, with just an initial conversation, again, this is more to serve as an example for you all to have something in front of you. The bigger thing that we're trying to get at is, would the council be okay with us kind of clarifying to our community what our internal policies are when it comes to SB 276 and our general interaction with federal agencies regarding immigration concerns?
There's nothing here that directs anyone at any time to do anything other than follow state law.
Yes, it was very specifically designed to be that.
So I think that's, I know there is a line item, I guess, line item number 7 that states that, but I think that's probably what you would want to do.
Yeah, we keep on trying.
But, Ms. May, what were your points?
My points, because I think, as you may recall from, maybe not, it's been here, the last meeting on this is, I am somebody who, I really like things that take action, and so some of the things that I've heard at this meeting, in Salt Lake. One, actually, I got into a long discussion with a councilwoman from Denver, and she was explaining their rationale in passing an ordinance very similar to this, was, again, making it, like, they knew it was state law, but making it clear to their constituents that they understood state law, and then this is what the constituents should ask, because constituents don't read Colorado Revised statutes. They might read our ordinances, or they might get directed to one of our ordinances to read that. So that was kind of one thing that really swayed my thought process on it, even though I know it is, in essence, is a statement of state law. But there was quite a robust discussion on what other towns are doing, and some of the things that caught my attention are setting out rules that law enforcement officers must be identified. They must wear identification. They must be identifiable, i.e. no masks. They must afford due process to the people that they encounter. They must wear, being identifiable, they must not only be identifiable by what jurisdiction or what agency they represent, but also like by which individual they are, like a badge number and name, for example, that is feasible. And that was really interesting because this seems like it should be extremely obvious, extremely like, we'll kind of know, but the space that we're in right now, I think that may be worth stating and having some leverage in town, that if we did encounter some of the things that we've seen, that we would have evidence of, like, this individual broke our municipal law. And therefore.
Did their city attorney weigh in on whether or not we have authority to dictate?
That's a good question, like in terms of a statutory thing, I don't, that was one of my questions that I wanted to bring. In this session that I went to where people were sharing this, we did have a number of attorneys in the panel who were weighing in, but obviously other states do their municipality structures do, some of their land do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be unfortunate if we put something in our municipal code that wasn't enforceable. So let's say someone relies on, the city council says, this is what uniform a federal officer has to wear, and no mask, they have to have a badge, they have to have a badge number. And they
Federal
basically
agents show up
say,
and- Yeah,
you have no authority to tell us what we can wear or not wear.
which is what's happening in California.
I mean, I think that's the hallmark. This entire administration is just doing whatever the hell they want, regardless of what the rules are, but I think it would, if we have that authority in the statute, I think it would be of us to clarify, like, here's our expectations. And I think it would give us the opportunity to join if there is any larger lawsuits. To join in that, and we would have clear, obvious documentation. I would like to add the caveat that I do want to make sure that we carve out, appropriate undercover work as not necessarily being openly identifiable. I don't want to impede
There has to be,
legitimate
there has to be standard
investigations.
wording for that.
Right, and there's like proper procedures that go along with having procedure, operations like that, that are too scared to say folks or.
Other, another municipality had a rule where they, did not allow, federal vehicles to park in their city-owned parking lots. A lot of the other stuff was more just sort of community-based, decisions of hotels or restaurants to not serve, but that wasn't outlined by the municipality.
Is there a mechanism, or have we identified a mechanism that would modify this should state law change? So that we don't get crosswise with state law?
In part, if the intent of the law, it is supposed to serve kind of that purpose of like, if the law changes at the time of when the ordinance was written, our ordinance was specifically intended to follow a very specific law, it just would.
So just stating that our ordinance is subordinate to?
I don't know that it changes the ordinance. I don't know that it doesn't mean that we don't have to go back and modify that. I think it just shows our intent was to follow a very specific law, and if new laws pass, that doesn't mean we don't follow them. It just means that at the time, we're just clarifying what we are going to do at this moment with the current laws.
And I like that clarification that and we have that in some of our stuff, right? Like if
think
this
that would
ends up
be-
with crossways of this is the rule that shall.
Yes.
And
That shall.
I think that would be essential.
Question, has this been through legal at all yet?
No, I mean, it is based off of a past ordinance of a different municipality, but our legal team.
Okay, because I do have a suggestion. If this is passed, and I hope something like this is, after I'm going.
And you can get home.
Cheater.
Some of the language, I think city staff or employees, as it says here, will need clearer language about what they can and can't do. This is confusing, there's some double negatives involved. Nothing in the chapter shall prohibit. That's confusing. I think of all the prohibited activities, and I would like all of them, shouldn't it say the city employees shall not, and not no city employee shall, the focus should be,
Sending items means legally.
focus should be on the action that they should not be doing. Right. City employees shall not retire until a person's immigration status.
I mean, yeah, but there is opportunity to expand it. Yes.
I think, and I think
But isn't that what you're showing to us because you want that?
Yes.
Okay.
primarily also is, I don't personally want to move, put in work to move things forward if council is like,
Right.
that's.
So let this subject discussion and see if council wants to move forward. We're getting into the nuts and bolts.
That's why I read that in.
So, isn't it most relevant if the 4 remaining council members want to?
Ideally, I think it'd be the most important for the remaining council people to run against.
Speaking for me, I was initially, a year ago when we first talked about this, I was initially hesitant because I didn't want to do anything that would make the community less safe for our community members. I didn't want to do anything to exacerbate the situation. I think the situation is developed in such a way that that's really no longer a relevant concern. So I would not be against an ordinance.
There was a concern brought up at the town hall that we did about this putting more of a target on the village.
That was my argument. Yeah.
Completely buying that, but I'm just wondering.
So, no, that's a good, thing. We did, or at least I discussed with various community members about that sentiment and that feeling. And none of them, including people who personally would be impacted, and I mean, really, everyone I spoke to would be impacted in one way or another, whether it be their family directly or they themselves. None of them were concerned about whether or not this would bring additional hire to our community, as it was seen that we are likely to be a target at some point, one way or another, whether it be because they commute to Summit County, which obviously we have no jurisdiction over, or because they are here in the community. And what they really felt was that we as electeds were not doing enough standing up for them and their rights. And this was seen as something that they did feel like would be us actually really standing up for them as much as we can, obviously, because there is
That's definitely, that's a solid argument. Whether they think it's going to place a target on them is not really material. It's actually going to do that or not. It's material.
right. And I don't know that there is a magic ball where anyone can say for sure it will,
But look at other jurisdictions that have done things.
Yeah, but if we do look at kind of what the federal government has done already, Lake County has already been identified as a sanctuary county and as a target for the federal administration. So there is already an inherent target, or at least acknowledgement that we exist. So whether or not we pass this, I don't think it's going to be a blip on their radar. Their goals are pretty predetermined on what they want to do, and I think they're going to do what they can to achieve their goals.
Rebecca, do you have an opinion?
I guess my initial reaction is that I feel like an ordinance at the city level is very redundant to state law. I think I personally would prefer to see a policy statement come out. And if people aren't reading Senate bills, I'm not sure they're going to be reading ordinances. But I really appreciated the remarks that Chief Trelka had in the Herald Democrat, I don't know, 3 months ago now, in terms of what steps local law enforcement will take to protect our entire community. And I think that, for me, that's has more weight, it's a little bit more meaningful, and isn't just as simple redundancy of a state law.
I think I'm inclined to listen to the people who are affected most by this. So if, like, what kind of my personal feeling on it, I'm not, so vulnerable to that. So to hear a request from folks who are more vulnerable to this, I think it's important to, it doesn't do any harm. I agree, it is inherently redundant.
Yes.
But, I don't think redundancy outweighs the request from our residents and constituents who are requesting it. That's my opinion, and why I'm inclined to support it, is because I don't think that a penalty has any problem.
This is something that we would do. Open house on? How would we go about getting some true community input? I understand Christian has done a lot of that on our behalf, but I'd love to hear from some of the community as well. I don't know how to do that.
Would organizations like Voces Unidas and Libres de Phoenix,
Even just talking to their heads would be.
or
I mean, I think, yeah, yes, there is opportunity for us to have more intentional conversation about this, even if it be, albeit a work session or some sort of format. There is a sensitivity to it. A lot of community members that I asked to come tonight share that they did not feel comfortable going to a public meeting to discuss this matter. Again, a lot of these people, whether it be them or their families directly, and even myself to some extent, have these concerns. Like it is a very vulnerable thing for those community members to come out and be so public about, which is why you didn't really see it. And even then, there was some community members who did come out at the town hall and were vulnerable, that they themselves may have been targets, who did actually say that they wanted to see this. There's opportunities, and I think there's ways that we can set up these meetings, and I'd be more than happy to work with you all to do that.
what about the heads of the advocacy organizations?
Yeah, that those people specifically, I think, could definitely be involved.
Because I hear what you're saying about on the individual level, but I think the advocacy organizations are out there.
Yes.
So,
I would love to have some interaction there.
And in that sense, absolutely. I would assume, though I haven't asked to be completely transparent, that they would be very open to have conversations with trust.
Even if it was just written communication, it would be nice to have some direct representation or just some direct feedback.
Is there an option for a policy statement, like I mentioned, has that been raised as an alternative or a suggestion that might be a little bit more concrete in terms of what local law enforcement can would do?
I'll be honest, I did offer alternatives as like, would a statement suffice? I didn't say like a policy direction. But the vast majority of the community felt that statements didn't really hold the same water as passing a law. And they did see Denver, when we had the discussion, as an opportunity, like for us to progress in a similar way. To the mayor's point, though, the same people may not read the ordinance unless they're directed to. That direction is the part that's important. When I go to my constituents and speak to them, when I can point to the law and say, well, actually, this isn't just state law that seemingly gets ignored by some communities allegedly, but it's also something that we like truly believe that here is the exact code where it falls. I think that's kind of like the reinforcement that really speaks to them as like, okay, you're actually taking it seriously. You're not just saying it, and it's not just this council. And I think that's the important part. It's not just the upcoming council. It's a perpetuity thing, and I think that's what's really, really resonated with them.
I think if we could organize some kind of meeting with the heads of the organizations, that would be a good question to float
Yeah.
by and to kind of
But those are nice next step.
I would also, in addition to that, like to float by, some of the things that I think would be worthwhile taking forward if we have the authority to do that, which is to clarify what our expectations are of law enforcement behaviors and identification, et cetera.
And that's something that has been well communicated, but it's okay in the past, so it's something that you could build on.
Because that would be something new. That's not covered by any current state or local ordinances or anything. And if we do have jurisdiction over it, especially things like parking lots, operations, where we can and can't operate, certainly I think it's worth the discussion by council, because it's going beyond just this. And I do think there's appetite within the community to go beyond, but this is really seen as kind of the first step.
Yeah, these other actions that you're talking about are actions that are being taken by communities that have been absolutely targeted and, for lack of a better term, occupied. It's a different situation from us, at least for now.
Yeah, a lot of the legislation was in action.
Yeah, after very likely it's falling down.
What if we put together a package of these options or ideas? Get kind of legal overview on what we can or cannot do, have the authority to do. Using that information, you know, having that package of options and then meeting with them. Having seen organizations and seeing what would pass muster. As long as we have some sort of assurance that there isn't anything illegal.
And two problems there, nothing illegal in their request, and nothing that would become illegal should state statute change. Those two things.
All of our ordinances are subject to state law changing and then we have to update. I don't see.
That's
how
very
this
true.
is-
What we don't want to do though is it takes time to change something. And should something drastic change, we don't want to put ourselves in a vulnerable spot. Given the opportunity, I'm not saying that it's impossible to do, but I'm just saying that it would be nice to preempt that concern.
Take a straw poll of interest in that procedure that I just outlined.
I'm fine for further discussion, but I'm not gonna say I support an ordinance at this point.
I would, echo that.
Everyone's up. I'm just for the package.
As legal rated alcohol.
Well, if we heard from them not last year, earlier this year, when there was a similar, but,
Well, just because we have Nick online, I'm curious what his initial thoughts are, if that's appropriate to ask.
well, he doesn't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen the ordinance you guys are talking about, so I don't really want to comment on any of it because I don't know what it says. And also the discussion topic was the discussion about SB 25-276. So, we'll obviously review whatever you send, but I got to see it before I know what I'm commenting on.
Okay. Ready to move on? Action item, action item, which is resolution number 40. This is just a pretty standard, appointment to the Leadville Housing Authority Board. I just want to point out that it's not the Leadville County Regional Housing Authority. This is the Leadville Housing Authority, which is essentially the board that oversees Mount Housing. Helps keep that entity moving forward. There has been a long-standing vacancy on that board, and Becky Lundberg, who, just to confuse matters a little bit more, is the executive director of the Leadville Lake County Regional Housing Authority, has offered a letter of interest to also be on the board of the Leadville Housing Authority, and he has met with the board members there, and they have they have accepted her letter of interest and I'm recommending, and so that is what resolution number 40 accomplishes.
Yeah, just for the record, Becky apologizes that she cannot be here.
She would regret it by now.
Yeah, I think so. If there are no concerns with that, then
Edwards moves to approve resolution number 40, series of 2025, a resolution of the city council of the city of Leadville appointing for the Leadville Housing Authority.
seconds. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Mayor Green,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Tharp,
Yes.
Councilmember Edwards,
Yes.
Councilmember Thomas,
Yes.
Councilmember Luna Leal,
Yes.
Councilmember Hill.
Yes.
She also sends her things for putting she sent me the text to say it, and I was like, well, I'll say it after you get it from me. I don't know that you would.
I do want to reclaim my privilege at this point of our meeting, which I would have done earlier, except I was late.
We actually, I want to clarify the record, he was not late. He was in attendance virtually, and you requested his presence in person, for which he had to run to City Hall.
It's a bit, I walked in LA, so I can experience it.
You know, I think this is our last meeting of the year, and so it's our last meeting. It's 3. Well, I'm really sad. That really local council, I don't know, doesn't have a choice. We probably. He's trying to work the stress, still lying to. But I, like, I think this has been really, really productive and really supportive council. I think we've had really respectful discussions and disagreements, and it's just been really great to work with you guys, and I'm really sad to be losing you. I'm just grateful for the time that you've put in to serving this community. And so as just a little bit of acknowledgement of that, thanks to Tim Best's insatiable curiosity, we already discovered I put a little gift under your desk. Yours is small enough to be in your desk. So there's so there you go. And yours is fragile, like I said, so it's all wrapped in bubble wrap, so you just might want to protect it that way.
Wait, can we make a request that Hill gets to take that was easy button as an outgoing council member?
This off in chambers?
No, you have to go out in the street.
You gotta go out
See, my
and.
face turned like square play in here.
I think there's a specific building that you can go to.
Like, I'm sure it's completely biodegradable.
I was using it very responsibly. Outside during the
For
break.
those of you who can't see, it has the responsibility.
There are YouTube videos of people doing it.
I didn't really disturb that you actually know that.
You know, you have to buy these by the case. What did you do with the other 39?
He gave them to the parades.
Thank you.
Anyway.
What is, can they open it? Can he open his?
When am I supposed to-
No, really. I mean, you can, but
You're
it was
welcome.
my intent,
Okay.
because I don't want to keep it searching.
I'm really disappointed that none of these 3 has gray hair. Not Andrew.
I have gray hair, you just can't tell.
It's just incredible.
He gets it taken care of when he goes to the salon after the council meetings.
Once every 2 years.
It's just like having your appointment this evening, so.
Did you fulfill 2 full terms?
I was appointed to a 2-year term and then elected to a 4-year term.
Good longevity.
So you've been here 116 years?
Yes, I would point out that, Dana was the last original community member that I served with.
Now, Dana, how long have you been on council?
I would like to point out that I do have gray hair. I was appointed in 2018. And I served a 2-year term and then
Nice.
filled a full 4-year term, just like,
Okay, so about the same.
yeah, I was 2 years ahead of him.
Okay.
But you must have been, you were 2007.
Oh.
I was appointed in
Little 4 times.
Well, before. I graduated in high school 2017, Dana.
I said, come back some more things.
So now going forward, it's gonna be like BT and after T because it's before Tim or after Tim. Is that our point
We
of
have to
reference?
specify before, it's actually before Hillary.
Yeah, which.
I'm really gonna miss having the Tims for.
Or over the hill.
Two Tims.
All downhill.
Those two tails. And I'm excited about our new council, but I always, there's something not forgetting about, I'm gonna tell you now. Karen.
Yeah, the plaid thing's gonna change.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, I don't really have, mayor's report. I don't really have a whole lot except to say I did have the opportunity to, go to my first policy, committee at CML. And it was super interesting. There were a couple of different land use things that we considered. So basically what happens is they look at legislation that is going to be or is pending that they already have the language for. And they decide, the actual lobbyists will advise that community can advise you to support this or to oppose this or we're going to go for an amendment for this. And so one of them, for instance, that was of interest to me is that it would, if it passed, it would remove the option. So right now, if you want to make a zoning change, say to put affordable housing in this one area, and there are adjacent residences, they can overturn that decision by a vote of 2/3 of the adjacent residences. And so the proposed legislation would eliminate that as an option, which is a little bit pushy, but it goes with my interest in using shall. And another one was changing so that, like right now, if we want to sell some of the city's property and it's something that we use, we have to take it to a vote in order to be able to sell that. And this would carve out section before, if you were going to sell this for development as affordable housing, then that would avoid that necessity to vote.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that last one? Because right now, can you just restate what you?
So right now, if we have a plot of land or something that we want to sell that we are using,
Yes.
we have to take it to a vote. But
A vote of the people.
Of the people.
That's what I wanted to clarify, not a vote of the council.
So 809 Spruce, if we wanted to sell that, we'd have to take it to the vote to the people. If we want to sell the land that we have, or no, we have it, we don't have to take it.
Because,
to
because it's unused land.
It-
But that's interesting
You don't even
because
know what we-
we wouldn't have to take it to a vote because we're gonna sell it for affordable housing, which means we'd have to go through the entire process before we know. So that's an interesting, it's a convoluted situation.
And I don't think that was one where, none of these were like, you're suggesting we approve. Most of them were like, we need to amend this
Yeah.
before we can vote to approve.
I can understand the motivation, but that would be you'd have to go through the whole process before you'd ever know whether you can actually do it or not, which would be interesting.
The situation we do that is like.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a bunch of other stuff, things that didn't really apply to us, like some water rules, just because where we live, we don't have a lot of agriculture. But super interesting, I'm really glad to have you. And I think that's important. That's all I got. Council?
Sure, I'll leave the other one, last one. For regional housing authority this month. I don't know if I said that before, but just to be abundantly clear. Not that, it, is very, very heavily attended, but just in case there's something. Also, I want to say, it's been a great 4 years. I started when I was 22, 26 now. It's been quite a ride. I certainly feel like there are things left on the table that I wish I had an opportunity to be able to voice my opinion on and push council forward, but I certainly feel very good about the direction that council has moved in those 4 years. And I think we've made good progress. So a lot of my personal goals, one of the main reasons why I came on was affordable housing. I knew that there's just no way that unless I got really lucky, which I honestly did, would be able to live here long term. If my dad had sold his house and we didn't have somewhere to go, I'd be out of this community. And that's just the unfortunate truth for many, many, many members of our community. And I take pride in my work in trying to alleviate as much as we can, obviously, because a lot of it's out of our control. But some of those issues, and I know that it wasn't always popular, and there's often times where we disagreed on the approach, but truly my intent was always to do this for the community members who I knew needed that advocacy. And in large part, I think we as a council succeeded to that, but I personally feel accomplished in that as well. And you probably won't, get rid of me. I'll be voicing my opinion in various ordinances when they come and go, and be pushing you all to pass certain laws. But it was a great opportunity to grow and learn more about what it means to be civically active in a community, especially one that I was born and raised in. And I wouldn't have had it any other way, even though things didn't go my way. I'm just genuinely, it was a good learning opportunity for me to kind of see how these things go and what avenues I could take, or even just to see just the reality of the situation. So I genuinely appreciate it. And I appreciated serving all 4 years with you, Dana, and with you, Tim. And of course, with all the rest of you as well.
You only have to live in one too for a year.
We'll see.
I've got one very, very short, very short. First, once again, kudos to the streets department for being out and visible and clearing the crosswalks. That was really huge. And I had 7 people rolling shot the street and after that. That was great. This is the second year in a row we've noticed a huge increase in seasonal traffic at the bookstore, with locals making it a point to shop local and shop small and support our businesses, which has been nice. It's usually shoulder season is just dead after the ski season. We've had commendable traffic from local people who made it a point to shop in person. And from a construction standpoint, we're booked out through 2027 with local rehabilitation and restoration projects. So things continue to be busy. So it's a nice thing to see for them.
Got one short one. The state historic fund made the announcement yesterday in which grants were awarded this fall. And unfortunately, City Hall did not make the cut. There were 7 or 8 applications from Leadville, Lake. The award amount was really oversubscribed. We had $14.8 million worth of grant requests and they awarded 4 of them. So City Hall didn't get it. With the city's permission or approval, I'll resubmit in April. And I requested all the reviewers' comments on our original grant application. So I continue to be optimistic that we'll get it one of these guys. Lake County did get, or Leadville rather, did get 2 awards, one for St. George, another $250,000 for St. George, and then Full Circle got a smaller grant for $46,000, I think, for their campus.
Do you know what a dollar amount for the next cycle will be? About the same?
It'll be this, in terms of how many people are gonna apply or?
No, how much the pool of money is going to be?
I don't know. I don't know how they work that. I don't know. Fall is the same as.
But you said this year it was 4 million.
Just over 4.2. We'll try to make it.
Thank you for following through that process.
This week we had a meeting of the indoor recreation partners, and so we were That meeting group took a little bit of a break for a few months, but we're back at it, continuing to collaborate. Lori was there and Lauren Barrett was there and I from the city and then school districts, county, having Sean from tourism and economic development was there and, PB Swims was invited, they weren't in attendance from them, was in attendance at this one, but just that collaboration is continuing on as we continue to consider the, mining event center, community center. And then secondly, tomorrow I'll be attending the first of, the CAST, so what's that, Colorado Association of Ski Gangs. CAST is, has a childcare task force, and so I'll be in attendance there, and Adam Ducharme will also be, and I think someone from Global Generation of Childcare Commission, so of the Lake County will have some representation.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Just have a short statement. Last statement. Appreciate working with everybody on the council, all the folks over the years. And very humbling experience for me. Also an experience of this completely out of my comfort level. And I've never really got comfortable with it, but just wanted to extend my appreciation.
You've never struck me as being out of your depth. Oh, you could. It's good to be.
Just so you.
Well. Everyone says, motion to adjourn?
So to adjourn.
Yeah.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
9:26.
So close.
This is one benefit.
I think she should still get a prize.